Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Welcome to a very exciting event tonight. We're hopefully going to witness some history here as one of the largest and most capable rockets is taking off for its very first time ever. And I'm honestly so excited about this. I don't know if you guys know, but I was lucky enough to be able to go to Blue Origin's massive factory in Florida, right outside of Cape Canaveral, actually right outside of the visitor center, which is awesome. And I got to tour that factory with Jeff Bezos, who was awesome. I really had a great time with him. He was super knowledgeable. I guess I honestly didn't realize how much he knew about spaceflight. So it was really fun to connect and see that rocket up close and personal, because now that I've seen it, I hopefully get to see it launch live, which is going to be really exciting. So here's the deal. I have found myself here in California. I'm on the wrong coast, and no matter how big of a telescope we put out here, unfortunately, we would not be seeing the launch tonight. And that's all right, because frankly, a rocket like this, a new launch, honestly, this is where I want to be. Well, maybe not here. I'd like to probably be in my studio where I have a little bit more control over things. But I honestly kind of just want to watch the live stream. I want to hear from the hosts. I want to learn. I want to see the great views that Blue Origin is going to be putting on. I feel like being there would be awesome. I would love to see this in person. If timing had worked out, I probably would have just gone for myself, frankly. But I don't think I would have had too much to offer you as far as like a live stream goes, right? So meanwhile, I'm going to mostly just be watching, adding some commentary, trying to answer your questions when I can. But most importantly, I'm just here to have fun and watch an awesome rocket take off, hopefully for the first time. Just for some context here, let me pull up a few little fun little things while we're waiting for the official live stream to start, because honestly, it's pretty crazy. Okay, so I wanted to show you a few of the things that Blue Origin has. Oh, I already messed this up. Where did that go? Okay. Here's a few things about Blue Origin's New Glenn. First off, remember, this is an orbital rocket. I know a lot of people are always saying when orbit, when orbit, when orbit when referring to Blue Origin. It's not like they haven't been working on this in the back end. This New Glenn rocket is huge. It's honestly about the size. The crazy thing is to think about is it's almost as tall as the Saturn V was. It's about 4 million pounds of thrust. I'm sorry, I'm using pounds just because it's top of mind right now, versus 7.5. So it's quite a bit lower thrust than the Saturn V, but this is competitive with, say, SpaceX's Falcon Heavy, and the booster will be reusable, hopefully. So, I mean, you got to give it to them. At least they're going very ambitious for a very first launch of an orbital rocket. So you got to give them props for going big on the first orbital attempt. So that's where we're at with this. This is showing the two engines, which is fun to think about here, because this was really fun to see them in person, because the BE-3U, when I was standing next to it, did not have its vacuum nozzle extension. So the engine that's on the right in this graphic is the BE-3U. There's two of those on the upper stage. It runs on hydrogen. And what's funny is it looks almost as big as the BE-4 that runs the booster. But ironically, real life, like, this is one of those things. I mentioned it, I don't remember, in an Aerospike video or one of the older ones, where I said something like, the nozzle's the main thing that we see, just observing a rocket casually. You see the size of the nozzle and you go, whoa, that's a big engine. But really, the engine is the power plant. It's the top, it's the turbo pumps, it's the combustion chamber. That's where all the magic happens. The nozzle is just an extension of that. And a vacuum nozzle, in this case the BE-3U, looks huge, and it actually looks bigger than the much more powerful BE-4. But that's just because BE-4 operates at sea level. So you can kind of tell by all the dressing on top of the engine that the BE-4 is a much bigger engine, and the BE-3, the actual turbo pumps, is a lot smaller. So there's 7 of them on the first stage of the BE-4s. Like I said, almost 4 million pounds of thrust. That's 17,000 kilonewtons of thrust. That is substantial. The other fun things here is when you look at the payload capacity. This is the other thing that's nuts about New Glenn that I don't think a lot of people appreciate. It's a 7-meter wide fairing. And it is fantastic. It's huge. It's one of the largest. I think it's the largest payload fairing ever manufactured on an operational rocket. And because of that, they show here they can fit 30 of their New Shepard capsules in there. And those capsules, I don't know if those are the suborbital little, the suborbital rides that we've seen, fly now many times, 26 or so times. But each of those hold 6 people. So if you imagine putting 30 in there, you could fit 180 people comfortably inside of an array of New Shepard. It's just pretty shocking. And 20 moving trucks. I mean, it's big. It's big, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate just how big it is. If you happen to be on the East Coast, unlike me, here is kind of your launch visibility of where you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to see this vehicle all the way up to, let's see, where is that? We got South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe? Is that what the 8 ring is in North Carolina, and over to through Georgia, a good amount of Georgia, and also some Alabama and things like that. Oh no. People are wanting me to say it's massive. Yeah. Maybe I'll use the word Colossus just so we don't get a spam of massive massive memes. But anyway, yeah, so if you're on the East Coast, and you might be able to see this decently, it is a Methalox rocket though, so it does not have any solid rocket boosters, which normally burn very bright. It also is not burning kerosene, which also burns very bright. And kerosene, kerosene is also RP1, so rocket grade propellant 1, is basically highly refined kerosene or jet fuel, and it has a lot of carbon in it. So as it burns off and afterburns in the atmosphere, it glows very bright orange. SRBs, solid rocket boosters, burn very bright. Hydrolox does not burn very bright at all, and in fact it's pretty much transparent. It's hard to see at night, or it's hard to see at day. You can typically see it at night, but it's not bright. Methalox is kind of somewhere in between. It's not very bright, but it's certainly brighter than Hydrolox. So you might have a hard time seeing this rocket compared to others. However, it's very large. So maybe you'll see it as far downrange as they're showing, which would be absolutely fantastic. Let's see, I probably should figure out how to do like a poll. I want to know how many people are thinking that this thing is actually going to be completely successful today. I'm feeling pretty good about it. They've taken their time, and I'm just hoping this thing launches without any problems at all. That would be fantastic. I just realized that I'm streaming from a hotel in California, in Lompoc, California, outside of Vandenberg Space Force Base. And I just realized that I don't have a way to do my comments on screen. I don't know if that's something I can do. I really wish the live stream would start now so that I can be distracted and try to figure out how to fix that. Let me see if it is. It is not. Live webcast coming soon. Can you guys let me know in chat if there's something actually popping up on the webcast? I have not yet seen anything live coming from Blue Origin, which I would love to see because I am ready to tune into it, honestly. Living it up in the Hotel California. Oh, God. Okay. Thank you guys for helping me, because this is one of those. I've had quite the few weeks here. It's been crazy, sleepless nights, and a lot of work with a lot of people doing a lot of really cool and fun things. But timing has been very hard for me. And luckily for those asking, yes, I have a red-eye booked out of here on Tuesday to hopefully make it to be able to see Flight 7, Starship Flight 7, on Wednesday. I had priorities, or what's that called? A commitment. There we go. I had a commitment here in California that has me here through Tuesday for Transporter 12, which I'm really excited about. I get to co-host and live stream, or the live stream production for Mark Rober's satellite, which is, in my world, very exciting because, if you think about it, Mark Rober has, he's one of the largest YouTubers. So he has 60-some million YouTube, followers. But that's not what it's about. He has a very engaged young audience that is into science, engineering, technical things, kids that are really excited about this kind of stuff. And what better people to get excited about spaceflight than that audience? So if we can even capture a small percentage of people that are going to be tuning into that launch and the subsequent videos that come out about him launching a satellite into space. I know it might seem trivial to some people, not as exciting as other things, but to me, in my world, reaching that next generation is absolutely everything. We've been working on this contract for 6 months, and honestly, I'm just really, really excited and feel very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to stream with Mark Rober. That's huge. That's amazing. So I appreciate the support for people that understand business obligations and the fact that I wouldn't walk away from a contract Meanwhile, I'm really glad that so far the timing is working out that I should hopefully be able to see Starship Flight 7. But yeah, we will see. So just so you guys know too, we're hoping for a launch here in 50 minutes. Unfortunately, I don't have any views to show you guys yet because they haven't begun their stream. And normally that happens. They said they were going to do that at T-1 hour, so I hope that doesn't mean that I'm going to have to sit here and fill that space. So I think if I did the overlay here, hang on, let me see if I can get into this. Let me try to get into our, yeah, that didn't work. I might be able to log in here and at least pull up your questions. That'd be really good for me. However, it'll probably have the wrong overlay. By the way, I could not think of the word Pathfinder earlier, so our producer Andrew has been texting me the word Pathfinder so that I remember the word Pathfinder. Okay, let's see if these are actually working. This would be awesome if this is working. Let's see here. It is. It's working. Okay, so now I just got to put it up on screen. Now, sorry, you're probably going to see a completely wrong time, but let me try pushing a comment here. This is from Fletcher Boy. Post link to merch store, please. It is working. I just got to learn how to. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the jankiest thing you guys have ever seen. Okay, that was jankier than I intended. That is actually the way I have to do this. No, I know. I'm going to be smart about this. This is a very fun live stream. I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it so I just crop it. That's what I'm going to do. Filters, crop. I'm going to get rid of the top. Let's see. Let's go like 100. Let's go 200. Close. There we go. Okay, I think I did it. Now let's try pushing another comment. This is from Aubrey J. Phillips saying, now that Flight 7 has been delayed to Wednesday, are you still planning on not being there in person for this launch? Like I just said, yes, hopefully now I can be there in person, which is awesome. Okay, so now I just have to fix where this thing is on screen. Okay, there we go. And let me fix that. Okay, so yeah, Fletcher Boy, post link to merch store, please. It should be pretty easy to do. Just everydayastronaut.com/shop should get you right where you need to be for that. So hopefully that's not too hard to remember. At everydayastronaut.com/shop. So yeah, here we go. This is the website, everydayastronaut.com/shop. I don't really want to be pushing this, although I'm trying to just wait until we get some video from them. We'll keep this up here, and then we'll answer your questions. This is so by the way, you'll see a lot of people using BONG, meaning Blue Origin's New Glenn. So Craig here asking, oh wait, do I need to make sure the overlay? Here we go. And I need to fix this too. Hang on. Because I moved it. Nope, not that. You guys are... It's like this is my first live stream. I wish I had... Okay, hang on. Well, oh well. Craig, your comment's going right in the middle of the screen. Had Blue Origin's New Glenn been available at the time, what kind of previous payload / market niche would this have been perfect launch vehicle for? So I think vehicles, so it's really good for GEO. As far as being a reusable first stage, it's quite good for GEO because it has a high energy upper stage. So it has a Hydrolox upper stage with highly efficient BE3U engines. And Hydrolox makes for the opportunity to have very high specific impulse. So it makes for a great geostationary and directed geo potentially. But with it being a reusable first stage, of course, you lose a little bit of that performance, but the upper stage can make up for a lot of that performance. So it would have been really good for missions like that. It would have been really good for missions like, let me think about this. You know, it probably would have been around James Webb class of missions, although obviously it would need a lot of, previous flights and heritage there before you trust it with something as valuable as that. But those are probably some of the big ones. It probably could have done Europa. I wonder if its C3 performance would have been better than Falcon Heavy for a mission, especially if you expend the first stage. It should have been able to outperform Falcon Heavy for a mission like Europa Clipper to, going out to the outer solar system. I think it would have had more performance I don't know exactly, but it's up there. I mean, it really is that powerful rocket. In fact, if you're doing, missions like outside of the Earth-Moon system, and you're really, having to like just full energy, it'll still outperform Starship, because Starship, is really meant for low Earth orbit, and not necessarily meant for high energy. Not really meant for high energy missions until you start doing refueling and all that stuff. So, sorry, I'm also trying to make sure we're not missing out on anything here. I don't know. I mean, I don't know when this webcast is gonna start. I hope it starts soon. I also realize this could probably be scaled up a little bit because it's not quite the right size. But anyway, let's keep going here with a few more questions. We'll work on that later. Again, hopefully they start streaming here soon. Let's see. This is from Vulcan. So does New Glenn have 5 times less thrust than the Super Heavy? Yes. It is about, so 75 meganewtons of thrust. And what did this say it has? Now we go to the X thing, because I can't remember the number right off the top of my head. 75 meganewtons of thrust versus, 17 meganewtons of thrust. Yeah, that's roughly 5 times less. A little bit less than 5 times less. Ooh, it sounds like it is live now. Let's see if we can tune in. Please. Yes. Okay. I'm going to be listening in here, and I really hope, I'm really excited about this, because here's the deal. This is, again, like I said, this is one of those missions that I'm just excited to learn about with you guys. I'm going to be witnessing this with you, and this is a new rocket. There's a lot of new things that we can hopefully learn, and meanwhile, whenever I have the opportunity to, I will answer your questions, including this one from Chris Franklin. What about the control scheme between the 3 engines and vertical control fins is different from Falcon 9? Do you expect it to work at least eventually? So what about the control scheme between the 3 engines and vertical control fins? Okay, so I think to clarify here, so what's interesting about New Glenn is that it has 7 main engines on the booster, and only 3 of them can gimbal. So unlike the Falcon 9, where all 9 engines can gimbal, which means they can steer, and that's how you provide the thrust vector control. Only a center 3, like a 3 in a line of, here, let me pull this up again, and that would be a good reference. I don't know where that went, so maybe I should do this here real quick. Give me a second. Let me find that thing. Okay, here we go. Let me zoom in on this and then cut you guys back. Okay, so notice that when you're looking down at the engine section here, you'll notice that there's going to be engines in a row. I hope you can see my mouse. I think you can. So 3 of the engines, and I believe it's the ones that line up with the large strakes, those large vertical fins, as you call them, but they're fins that run the length of the vehicle. Those ones, so it would probably be these 3, the one going top and bottom. Those 3 can gimbal. And Blue Origin feels that that's enough to actually provide all the control authority you need, because if you think about it, you really only need 2, ideally at least 2 engines to be able to provide roll. So if you can twist them opposite of each other, that's your roll axis. That can make you roll, left or right. And then based on that, so the 3 engines can also gimbal together in this direction. That could be your pitch, and then they could go the opposite way, and that can be your yaw. So you have all 3 axes of control there. But then what's interesting is on re-entry, it does have the, here, let me get this back going. Hopefully they start talking to us soon. But then on re-entry, it's using a very similar idea to the Falcon 9. Instead of using grid fins, they're using kind of like a stabulator, like an all-moving control surface, which functions the same effectively as a grid fin. However, it's always deployed on ascent, kind of like how frankly, we see that now with Starship. Starship still uses a grid fin, despite it being just deployed during ascent, which is unusual because that's kind of half the point of grid fins. But they have a more traditional, canard-looking stabulator, like an all-moving control surface. And then there's the 2 strakes on the side of the booster. Now, those strakes are there to be able to provide extra cross range and lift, basically. So as the booster's falling, and we're going to do a very high-end demonstration here with my Pure Life water brought to you because of diamond status of Hilton hotels or whatever. I don't know. I don't even think. Anyway, so it goes up, rocket comes down. And let's say if it was falling straight down relative to the wind stream, where all of the air is rushing along the rocket, you know, it would have the lowest ballistic coefficient. So there wouldn't be much surface area to slow it down. Now the opposite, the most surface area would be if it was if it was perpendicular to the wind stream like this, right? Where you're now exposing as much surface area to the wind to slow it down before the landing burn. This is what we see with Starship. That's why Starship belly flops, is to increase the surface area, have it hit as much of the atmosphere as possible to slow it down. So the, hang on, just making sure. Okay, so the strakes, on the other hand, kind of help go somewhere in between those two. Since the engines are the most mass of the vehicle, they want to go first. And it's going to be re-entering engines first, but in order to provide as much lift as possible, you put these strakes down at the bottom. They basically act like wings. So now you can start falling at an angle relative to the wind stream. Let's say 20, 30 degrees angle of attack relative to the wind stream, and you can start providing lift. And if you can provide some lift, there's going to be an equal amount of drag, which helps slow the vehicle down. So you'll have this big negative pocket of pressure on the back side and the opposite side of the booster, which will slow it down in the atmosphere much more than just falling straight down. So how will they control it? Pretty much in the same way that the Falcon 9 does. Hopefully it has a little bit more lift than the Falcon 9, which hopefully will scrub it, you know, help scrub a little bit more velocity off. And that's very exciting. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question in a very long-winded way. Let's see here. Oh, this is from L Motorsport fan. Hey, Areem, fan since the orange spacesuit days. Thanks to your videos, I'm part of a team that has a vehicle on Transporter 12. Hey, that's awesome. No way. Congrats on having a vehicle on Transporter 12. That is the dream, isn't it? Building something that is going to space. That's absolutely incredible. Congratulations. This is from John Remmel. Watched your Bezos/Blue Origin episode. It was excellent. I too was impressed with Bezos' overall knowledge of the individual systems, etc. I really enjoy your work on YouTube. Thank you so much, John. I know everyone's asking, when's the Apollo video going to come out? The simple answer to that is when it's done. It is now over 2.5 hours long. I've been showing little teasers here and there on social media occasionally, but you know what's fun is we're going to have Apollo 16 lunar module pilot Charlie Duke at the Astro Awards. That's the award show that we put on live in person, where we literally give out trophies to the people behind the incredible missions from the year before. So we're going to be giving out awards to the coolest missions of 2024 and 2 days of panels. And what's fun is I'm going to be talking, and we have astronaut Charlie Duke attending in person. Here, let me just switch to this. He's going to be doing a speech, and he's on a panel. And I decided, since I'm this far out and I can't even work on this video this month, I want to ask him some questions and include it in the video about how we know NASA took humans to the moon. What better source than talking to an actual Apollo astronaut about it? So that'll be a fun little addition. And then I'll be, really, really putting a lot of time into finishing that video here when I get home. So it's a busy, busy, busy month right now with this launch, with New Glenn, with the Vandenberg launch here with Transporter 12, with Flight 7, and then the Astro Awards live in person, January 25th and 26th in Austin, Texas. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. If you happen to be around or available in Austin, Texas, you should maybe consider coming to this thing, because it's amazing. We have a lot of cool people like John Krause and Diane Proctor and Paul Wooster, who's the principal Mars development engineer for SpaceX, is going to be on a panel as well. So a lot of amazing people, a lot of cool panels. So hopefully you can come if you want. Go over to everydayastronaut.com/Astro Awards, or you can go to astroowards.live. And get your tickets now. It's in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. Oh my gosh. Plus we have to still announce who's all winning the awards, and it's amazing. Okay, so let me see if it's still saying the live webcast will be casting soon. So hopefully that does cast soon. And as soon as it does, I will let you guys know. Meanwhile, let's answer. This is from Sick Banana. How much does it cost to send something to the International Space Station? Thank you for your support. There's no fixed cost, but you can kind of break it down. So probably the cheapest way to get something to the International Space Station would be having something on a cargo mission, like a Dragon cargo mission, which is probably something around the lines of, let's see, 70 million. I don't know what the latest contract is, but let's say 70 million. $70 million. And then there's up to what, 6,000 or 7,000 kilograms of payload mass. We'll say 7. I'm going to do very rough numbers. Divided by 7,000 kilograms wait, 7,000 kilograms. Wait, how would you do this? Okay, so that can't be right. It can't be $10 per, no. 70 million, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, divided by 7,000 would be roughly $10,000 a kilogram. There we go. That was I was off by an order of magnitude. That is the very rough number of about how much it would cost to send something to the International Space Station. So depending on what you mean by send something, that's a real rough guess. It might be a lot cheaper than that. There might be some cheaper options. But yeah. Okay, we're hopefully within 35 minutes now, but hopefully we get this live stream coming up here. This is from Idris. Do you think with New Glenn and Starship being different enough weight classes that there won't be much stealing of contracts from Starship as many in the media think? To be perfectly honest, I have no idea. Starship has the potential to really be disruptive when it just can send that much to space. It can send a lot and potentially for very cheap. When it will be able to send a lot cheap to space, anyone's guess. I mean, I think it could be as early as, maybe in the next couple years. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, you could pay and hire them as a service to be able to launch something into space. However, that might not be the case. It might still be 5 years before you can really do that. And it might not be until there's pressure that they would even remotely consider lowering the cost. Because right now, SpaceX kind of can just, they have a fixed, they don't have any incentive to lower prices, right? Jeez. That felt like an earthquake, but I'm pretty sure it's just someone very heavy-footed walking by with like a suitcase full of what could only be elephants. The fun part of streaming from a hotel. But yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about there. So I think that New Glenn really, for a little while here, will have probably be the strongest for geostationary options, for large geostationary vehicles, but also it has a huge fairing, so it really could do really well with some transporter style missions where you have a lot of vehicles that aren't very heavy, but you just have a lot of them. Same with the Amazon Kuiper missions. That's kind of that's the direct competition to Starlink. I think that it's still going to be very competitive because you got to look at this as like, yes, people are going to compare it to the Falcon 9 and they're going to compare it to Starship. And right now, obviously, if it nails this mission, it'll be operational basically and start launching quite frequently, hopefully several times this year. And hopefully it does it cheaper, eventually cheaper than the Falcon 9 and a lot higher payload volume. But I don't know if it's, they're going to have to keep pushing it and really trying to get the most out of it to really compete with Starship, including their plans for potentially having a reusable upper stage. Okay, let's see. This is Chris Gage. Tell us the story about when you gave Elon the aha moment to improve Raptor. Well, you have a few details wrong. First off, I didn't give him any ideas. I asked a question. And to be perfectly honest, it's because I was not fond of the idea of the warm gas thruster system. The other detail that you had wrong is it wasn't about Raptor. It was about specifically the thruster, the RCS, the reaction control systems on Starship. He had described to me in a previous interview about using warm gas thrust, so basically using the ullage gas here. Again, we'll use our fancy water bottle, our Pure Life water bottles, brought to you by Pure Life. obviously, where there's not water, there is air inside this bottle. A rocket is very similar, actually. Oh yeah, the other the other thing that you got wrong about your question is everyone thinks that it was Mark Rober that asked the question, so you got that wrong too, because it must have been Mark Rober. Wait. I don't know how they got pushed. Okay, so you have liquid fuel inside of a rocket. Oh, yes. Ooh. This is all I wanted is to hear. Why can't I hear? Can anyone else hear? Let me try to pull up something. Why aren't I hearing this? I hope that's on their end and not my end. Hang on. This is not ideal. The design is not very human right now. Hang on. 1 second, I'm working on it, guys. Let's see if we can. Let's see if we can get some audio. Let's see if we can get some audio. Well, first, hang on. I'm going to check on my phone, see if there's audio on my phone. Shoot, okay, it's on my computer. Give me a second here to troubleshoot this. I'm not sure why it would be muted. Oh, I know. Let me try something.
Here at the tower?
To open the promise of space to all.
Let us listen in.
And lay the way for generations to come. When our descendants look to the stars, they'll remember this time. When they reflect on where it started, they'll remember this place. And when they honor those first explorers who said, "Let's go," they'll remember these bold steps. We are of Blue Origin. And this,
that's right, there it is, go for test,
is just the beginning.
Welcome, everyone. It is a beautiful day to launch our new rocket. Denise, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Ariane. I can't believe we're here together. You know, so many years of hard work from across all the teams at Blue Origin to bring us here today. And a warm welcome to everyone watching. I've been at Blue Origin for 4 years, and I just got to say, I am so thrilled to be here.
You were speaking my language, girl. Now, Denise, you're one of our principal engineers on the New Glenn program. I'm looking forward to your insider perspective as we go through launch. What do you think you're most looking forward to tonight?
So many things, but I think for me, hands down, it's going to be the noise. You know, New Glenn is just so big. Those BE4 engines are so powerful, and it's so close to us. I really think that people all up and down the Cape and Cocoa Beach are going to see something brand new today. And yep, that's what I'm here for. I'm going to bring some insider technical content as we go. You know, in my role at Blue as the principal contamination control engineer on the New Glenn team, I'm going to try to provide all those cool details that folks might want to know.
It's great to have you with me today. Thanks so much. You've been one of many team members working extremely hard on this vehicle, so this is a big day for you and the team.
And what a day for you, Ariane. Congratulations on your baby girl. Welcome back from maternity leave.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here for New Glenn's first launch. Absolutely no way I would miss this. I had my beautiful baby girl just a couple months back, and now I feel like I'm back for the birth of my other baby back here, New Glenn. But before we get in a little too deep into the show, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the devastating fires in California. We hope that everybody remains safe, and we want to send our deep appreciation for the incredible work of the firefighters and emergency workers battling these fires and caring for so many people. We at Blue actually have a few hundred employees in the great state of California, many at the center of it all.
We are Team Blue, and our hearts are with you during this difficult time.
Well said. Now, with that, let's turn our attention to the star of the show today, New Glenn, standing proud on the launch tower just a few miles away at Launch Complex 36.
There it is, standing tall. And you know, we've got plenty of cameras all around the pad, so we're going to get some great views today.
That rocket looks good.
It
all
really
right.
does.
Why don't you start, Denise, by giving us a tour of the vehicle?
Well, New Glenn is Blue Origin's next generation orbital class rocket, and it's built on a reusable first stage.
And speaking of reusability, let's look at the aft section there of New Glenn. One of the things that is critical to New Glenn, of course, because it's a reusable vehicle, is the landing gear that's housed in the aft section there.
So there's actually 6 landing legs on that aft section, and they're actually going to deploy right before it lands.
And unlike New Shepard, our suborbital vehicle, New Glenn's booster is going to land out at sea.
New Glenn is going to launch vertically here at the Cape. It'll then arc over the Atlantic on its way to orbit. The first stage is then going to maneuver its way back to Earth onto a landing platform that's actually positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, the first stage booster is powered by 7 BE-4 engines, and these are really powerful engines. Each one is capable of over 500,000 pounds of thrust each. So when we combine all 7, we're talking about a launch vehicle with a thrust at liftoff of nearly 4 million pounds.
3.85 million to be exact. Got to make sure our engineers, out there don't call us out. Got to get the sig figs right. But that's just the first stage. And as the first stage is busy landing back on Earth, meanwhile, the second stage is going to continue into orbit. Just for...
Sorry, is the audio a little too quiet still? Let me know and I'll try cranking it up just a little bit more.
Basically what we're doing is we stack one rocket on top of the other. Stage 1, stage 2. Stage 2 is the bottom. Stage 1 is the... Stage 1 is the bottom, stage 2 is the top.
Correct, yeah. So stage 2 is actually what's sitting right there on top of the booster on the pad. And what's really unique about the second stage is that it's powered by 2 BE-3Us. Now, these are actually an upgraded design based on the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen engines that power New Shepard.
And then, of course, there's the crown of the vehicle, if you will, the payload fairing on top.
Yep, that's my favorite part, the payload fairing. It sits right on top of that second stage, and it's really a protective cover that takes care of our payload on its way to space. But it's really what's inside the fairing that's at the heart of every New Glenn mission.
That's right. So every rocket launch is about sending something to space, and today's launch is no different. For this first mission, that payload is a Pathfinder for another Blue Ring program, Blue Ring. It happens to be very near and dear to my heart because it's the program that I help lead.
For those asking for the exact countdown, they don't have a current net up yet for us. Hopefully they provide that soon. I also don't have a clock that's currently working, but hopefully they update that soon just so we know, because they might be somewhere in the count. They have a 3-hour launch window today, but let's listen in and see if they give us something.
Ariane, hey Denise, we really doing this?
This is happening. We are definitely here at launch day, and you have to be feeling some of the same tingles we are down here. Why don't you situate us to where you are standing up there? What's going on? What's the vibe up there?
The vibes are impeccable. I am here by mission control. Right down the hallway, as you said before, we've got our launch control. In these rooms are our engineering teams and operators who are going to go ahead and be, looking at all of that data coming off the vehicles. They're going to give us our best chance of success today.
Now, we've got a pretty...
Look in the background on mission control. You can see the views of Jacklyn, the drone ship that it's going to be landing on. That's awesome.
Right up there through the launch to keep us plugged in behind the scenes. What are you looking forward to sharing with us today?
A lot. I'm really, really looking forward to making sure that you know what's going on in these rooms, take you through some of the personalities we've got inside, how it all works. If there are a couple anomalies, we'll work through those together. It's going to be a great time, Ariane.
Love it. Thank you so much, Maggie. We're grateful to have you up there and keeping us connected. And of course, we're going to patch you in as we go. Now, let's check in with our broader Blue team. Our employees in Florida today are getting a close-up view of the launch over at nearby Cars Park. Eddie Seifert is there standing by. Eddie, you there?
Yeah. Hey, Ariane. Welcome Welcome to the best seat in the house. We've got the best Team Blue behind me. I hope you can hear it. It's pandemonium. How are you guys doing over there?
Oh my God, I love the energy. Talk to us. Tell me about the scene. What you're seeing. What's the view? Talk to us.
We are 6 miles away as the crow flies to Launch Complex 36. It's pandemonium here. New Glenn is perfectly viewed in the distance, and we are here to support at Cars Park. We're joined by Space Coast residents. We're joined by family members, team members. This is really an exciting moment for Team Blue.
Eddie, now you're a familiar face across Blue Origin. You've got a front row seat at Blue watching this rocket go from design to build to test. What's going through your head right now?
You know, it's a collective sense of anticipation. Everyone here has done everything that they knew to do to the best of their ability. Their family members have sacrificed for them to be here at this moment at New Glenn 1. And we have one proposal. Let's send it. Let's light this candle. Let's send New Glenn to space. Let's send Blue Ring on its mission. This team is hyped.
Well, Eddie, one more cool thing that you and the team collaborated on. I understand all of Team Blue signed the fairing before it went to the pad. You want to tell me about that?
Yeah, so signing space hardware is a tradition at Blue. From the New Shepard propulsion module panels to the crew capsule base heat shield, those engines on New Glenn have our signatures. Now the nice thing about those 7-meter fairings that are over 60 feet tall is that it can fit the signatures of more than 10,000 employees that currently call Blue Origin home. And so that's what we're sending to space in addition to the hardware. And this team right here, they made it happen.
Well, thank you, Eddie. Can't wait to check in with you again shortly. You keep the Team Blue pumped down that, but I have a feeling you're not going to have too many troubles. No, they seem pretty psyched.
We're psyched to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Well, I look forward to what both Eddie and Maggie can bring to the show. Let's take a little deeper dive into the mission today.
So there is a lot. Right now, we are tracking a number of technical milestones between now and liftoff, and then there's going to be another set of critical in-flight milestones once we're underway. Now, we do want to be very clear about our objectives today. This is New Glenn's first flight, and we prepared rigorously for it. But no amount of ground testing or mission simulation is a replacement for flying this rocket in space.
Well put. Our key objective today is to reach orbit safely. Anything beyond that is icing on the cake, bonus points, cherries on sundaes, whatever you want to call it. We know that landing the booster on the first try offshore in the Atlantic is ambitious, but you can't win if you don't try, and we are going for it tonight. And no matter what happens, we are going to learn, refine, apply that knowledge to our next launch, both, of course, in the design of the vehicle, but also into the operations. And about that booster, again, yes, we are going for it. New Shepard landed on only its second attempt in November of 2015. I happened to be on the ground for that in West Texas back in the day, and it was wild. And man, I can't wait to see if we can make some more history here with New Glenn, which our booster today has been named with a pretty cool name. You wanna tell us that?
Sure is. Our booster's named So You're Telling Me There's a Chance.
Classic 90s movie reference there for all you Jim Carrey fans. But let's level set here. You think we're going to stick the landing? Like if you were a betting lady in Las Vegas this evening?
So we think it's possible. You know, the truth is that this is an enormous goal. We're trying to land a giant building-sized vehicle that's plummeting down from space. There's just so much complex engineering that goes into this. But you know, it's time that we try it for real, and today is that day.
Let's do it. Let's put it to work. We'll see how it performs. But hey, no matter what happens, we're going to learn a ton, get loads of data, and apply it to NG2 and beyond. Now, that said, if we land this thing, I'm going to lose my mind.
You and me both.
Okay, good. Just setting expectations for everybody on this one. Now, some other business to discuss this evening is the payload we have on board. We have early technology demonstration on board for Blue Ring. And as mentioned before, it is something that I'm very excited about because it's related to the program that I help lead here at Blue Origin. There it is on the left side of your screen there, sitting nice and ready to go in the payload fairing. But to be clear, what you're looking at, this is not Blue Ring itself. This is not the Blue Ring spacecraft itself. It is a Pathfinder for the Blue Ring vehicle. And so the vehicle, the Blue Ring vehicle that we are building currently employs a lot of the same technologies and capabilities that are put in that vehicle that you see on the left of your screen. And today we are going to validate the communication capabilities from orbit to the ground. Now, it's also worth noting that today's payload is non-separating. So it's going to actually stay attached to the second stage throughout the mission as it powers on and it begins collecting data. For the broader system we're building, for the Blue Ring itself, you can think of Blue Ring as a utility vehicle, a multi-tool, or kind of a mobile service station that we can use to run errands around the solar system. Today, on this mission, it's a super cool Pathfinder for that vehicle that will be flying. We have some exciting details to share a little later on. We're going to get way in depth on the exact technology that we're testing today, as well as Blue Ring. But I'll tell you right now, I'm super excited about not just the launch, but the payload, and for both, you know, the New Glenn team and the Blue Ring team. So much work has come together today. And that's why today is such a big deal. We're going to be laying the foundation of our mission to build a road to space for the benefit of Earth.
Such an exciting launch and just so much to aim for.
Yes, but to level set again, at the end of the day, we know that we're in this for the long haul. Today is just day one, the beginning of a new chapter for New Glenn. We're going to collect a significant amount of data, no matter what happens. And from our perspective, the way I like to put it, data is the currency of success. The more data we have, the better off we are. The longer we fly, the more data we collect, the more we can crunch on, so we can reinvest back into New Glenn for New Glenn 2 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. And that data is really going to be critical for our engineers and our ability to evolve New Glenn into a fully operational program. You know, with New Shepard, we've flown 28 missions so far, and we've sent over 40 astronauts to space. And while we consider that system fully operational, that flight data that we get after every mission helps our engineers fine-tune the system. It helps us refine our procedures, reduces the overall time between launches, and perhaps most important of all, it significantly drives down the cost of spaceflight.
And we have learned so much as New Shepard has progressed. And by the way, those learnings all come into play on New Glenn. We've integrated a lot of design and operational lessons from New Shepard into New Glenn. So, and speaking of lessons learned from New Shepard, there's that recurring Blue Origin theme of reusability. New Shepard has, with its booster, of course, one that lands, right? New Glenn, the same deal. But let's point out one big difference. New Shepard lands on a landing pad in the desert, while New Glenn's landing pad is out in the Atlantic Ocean. I should take a moment to note, you know, the ocean, the seas out there have been quite rough for the last several days. So, you know, that is why we took a little bit of extra time to get a really good chance of landing this booster tonight. So a big kudos to our team that is out there operating the Jacklyn. They have been rocking and rolling, with the waves out there for several days, but things are going to get exciting this evening. Now, a key piece of this landing system is the landing ship, which we call the Jacklyn. You want to tell us a little bit more about the Jacklyn?
Would love to. So we've actually named our landing platform after a very special Blue Origin family member, the Jacklyn. It's right now out at sea, a couple of 100 miles from Cape Canaveral, and the crew that's operating the Jacklyn is actually positioned nearby in a different support vessel.
That seems prudent, doesn't it?
It does.
Just saying.
We're also going to, there it is. And we also have a lot of cameras on our ship today, so we expect to be able to watch it live as our booster touches down, and that's just going to be so cool.
Yes, it is going to be such a pivotal moment. Our first landing attempt for this rocket. We have got to make sure that that gets captured regardless of what happens. And there's a live shot, a beautiful landing pad there with our Blue Origin feather, just waiting to just welcome home a rocket from space. No big deal.
And after that booster lands on the Jacklyn, the vessel is going to transport the booster back to our facilities here at Rocket Park. We're going to do an inspection before flying again. And this is, of course, very important because...
You've heard us sing this tune before. Reusable vehicles are how we will radically reduce the cost of access to space. Now, I hope you're all out there getting a sense of the set pieces here that make up today's launch. We've got the vehicle itself. We've got the ground systems, but we've also got the sea-based systems. And of course, all of the people, the teammate across the Cape and the...
I just want to know the T0 time. They're killing us right now because we're supposed to be T-minus 10 minutes.
As we make our way towards the very first orbital flight for Blue Origin.
But we don't know yet. They haven't given us a proper T0 yet this entire time. Which is why I don't have a clock up. Well, I also don't have a clock up because it's not working right now. But, oh, there we go. We do have a T0 time. Hang on. Let me move my little stupid face. T-minus 40 minutes. There we go. So it has moved a little bit. I'm glad I didn't have false expectations and put up a false time. T-minus 40 minutes. So they did move it back 30 minutes into the 3-hour launch window. So they have until, let's see, UTC. So the launch is supposed to be at 1 a.m. local Eastern. They have until 4 a.m. local Eastern. Right now, that is targeting a 1:30 a.m. local Eastern, which is 5 hours off of UTC. Is that correct? So, yes, that's 6 UTC to 9 UTC. So hopefully we actually see this thing take off here in 39 minutes. Let's see. Let's answer a few more questions while we are waiting. This is Michael McGinley. Sorry that I still have the comments right smack in the middle. I haven't quite figured out how to fix that right now. I'll get there eventually. What about the control scheme between these? Wait, no, sorry. Longtime subscriber here. As an 85 kilogram man, how many newtons?
Welcome back, everybody. We are officially at T-minus 38 minutes and 57 seconds to go until launch, our first launch of New Glenn. I should note that as we go along here, you might see our clock bounce around a little bit. That's just our teams getting aligned and making sure that by the time we get down to 0, everybody's set and ready to go. But talking about ready to go, Denise, why don't you give us an update on the vehicle and its preparedness?
Absolutely. So our team has already completed fueling up New Glenn's propellant tanks for both our first stage and our second stage. We are now entering the next step, which is called propellant conditioning. This is, of course, a crucial step because we need to make sure that those propellants are at the right temperatures and at the right pressures. We also need to manage pressure. You might have noticed that there's a lot of excess gases that are being vented from our first stage and our second stage. This is because our cryogenic propellants are so cold that they're experiencing something called a boil-off. So we are venting all that excess gas to prevent buildup and overpressurization. You may have also noticed on your screen that we have the flame stacks, or what we lovingly call the tiki torches. That's there as a safety mechanism to make sure that we are burning all that flammable oxygen and hydrogen, protecting New Glenn and our launch pad. So that is where we are right now. We'll keep tracking progress as we make our way to terminal count.
Thank you very much. We will look forward to the next update on the team and the rocket there. Now, we mentioned that we're sitting in the rocket factory here. Blue Origin's mission control is right upstairs, right above our head. And we're very close to where the rocket is itself. So maybe if you zoom out a little bit, Denise, you can give us a sense from a geography-wise where we're sitting.
We are super close. So behind me, I have a map of Florida. You can see very clearly here we have Merritt Island and Cape Canaveral. If you go ahead and zoom in, I'll show you where we are right now. We are right now at Blue Origin's Rocket Park. This is where New Glenn is built integrated, tested. This is where we're coming in live from our studio. And just a short 8 miles away, we have LC-36, where New Glenn is standing proudly, waiting for its first launch. You just heard from Eddie and a few of our employees. They're just here in Cars Park, and if you're lucky enough to be watching from either Jetty Park or anywhere up, down Cocoa Beach, you are going to get a great view of the New Glenn launch tonight. So that's the lay of the land here. It just really goes to show you how the full operation of New Glenn is nearby.
And not only that, but New Glenn, the New Glenn operation is also right in the heart of all this great space history here in Florida.
So the Atlas II and Atlas III launches took place from here. The Mariner, Pioneer, and even Surveyor missions. They sent spacecraft to explore Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and even the lunar surface. Here's some footage showing off the renovated launch pad that carries all that history.
I think I speak on behalf of everybody here at Blue Origin that it's just an honor to be launching a next generation vehicle right here on top of all of that history. And the launch pad is so close. I mean, I know we're going.
I have to add a fun little comment because I feel like they're trying to just fill time now too. But you do notice that this is on Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, yet it's called Launch Complex 36 as opposed to Slick 36, like almost every other pad that's on the Cape. So normally we delineate what's going to be, you know, if it's at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station versus Kennedy Space Center. Kennedy Space Center has LC-39 and LC-39A and LC-39B. So Launch Complex 39A, Launch Complex 39B. And almost every other launch pad that's all at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, technically it's a slightly different everything, but right there, all kind of along the same area of geography. But almost all those are slicks, so Space Launch Complex, except for this. This is still Launch Complex 36. Just thought that was interesting. Let's listen back in.
You know, Jetty Park, Port Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, so many people gather to watch launches from these spots already. And wow, I mean, look, this is a live view. If you're sitting there right now in Cocoa Beach, shout out to you guys. You're probably sitting in a nice lawn chair with a cold beverage in your hand. That's what I'd be doing if I weren't here behind the desk with you, Denise. You guys are going to get to see and feel this launch with an insane view. So, you know, other than maybe tripping some tsunami warnings, y'all are going to have a great evening.
There really is nothing better than a beachside rocket launch.
Well, and weather permitting, it's not just people down here in Florida. People in the region, kind of the southeast region of the U.S. You see this image right here. Look, that's going all the way as far north as, you know, North Carolina. Several states north are going to be able to see this launch during different phases of flight based on where you are. So a little bit of a guide here. If you guys are all still up, you know, it's a bit late here on the East Coast, but this is an exciting launch. So shout out to you guys as well that are watching live from the East Coast. All right, everybody, we're at T-minus 33 minutes and 30 seconds to go and counting down to our launch window opening at T-minus 0 for New Glenn's first launch. Denise, I cannot believe I'm saying that. We've been talking about this such a long time. It's just wild. Now, again, this is our first flight. We have prepared rigorously for it, but I want to reiterate, our key objective today is to reach orbit safely. That in itself is a big deal, and anything beyond that is a bonus. That said, we also know that landing the booster would be very cool. We also know that it is very ambitious to do this on the first time, but we're going for it. And no matter what happens, we are going to learn a lot, we're going to refine, we're going to apply that knowledge to our next launch and beyond. It is an exciting day, and we are so glad that you, our audience, is here to join in on all the action and all the excitement. Okay, while we've got a moment, we've got this beautiful rocket on the pad on our screen. Why don't we dive in a little bit deeper on New Glenn? Denise, our experts here, why don't we dig in, give our audience a sense of what sets this vehicle, New Glenn, apart from other launch vehicles, both, you know, past and present?
Well, to start, it's just massive, just over 320 feet tall, or almost 98 meters. And just think about that. That's like a 32-story building. It's really hard to describe what that means, but another way to think about it, we all know and love New Shepard. Picture 5 New Shepards stacked one on top of the other, and that's approximately the height of New Glenn.
And that's remarkable when you think about that jump from New Shepard to New Glenn. Just that size. Oh, say, there you go. You see this great image on our screen here that gives you a sense. We talk about step by step ferociously. That's a big old step we're taking tonight.
It's also amazing to think that New Shepard technically could fit as a payload right inside of New Glenn's fairing with room to spare on the sides.
And as fun as that would be, we don't really need to ship New Shepard off to another planet anytime soon, as far as we can imagine, although that would be a pretty cool, sneaky, third and fourth stage if you count that capsule in there. But that said, we make this point because it speaks to future capabilities, like moonlanders, other large vehicles that are similar in size to New Shepard. It is incredible that fairing volume and the size, what it's going to enable as we build this road to space. Now, it's not often that you get to stand next to a massive rocket like that on a launch pad, ready to go to space. But you and I had an amazing opportunity. This is just a day or two ago. And I don't know, I just look at this video and I get tingles. It was incredible to be at the base and looking at what our team has worked on for such a long time. There you see the flame trench. Smoke and fire, baby. That's what we're looking for tonight.
I get chills every time I watch that. I mean, that was just so incredible. That's not something that I will likely forget anytime soon. It's just so tall when you're standing right next to it.
Yeah. Well, that tall rocket is going to space tonight. And you all are going to be here to watch and cheer on with us. It's a big night. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that'll give you a key differences between a vehicle like New Glenn and others that have lifted off from this pad in the past. I think there's another key thing about New Glenn, and it really is that reusability aspect. So while the scale of New Glenn is truly remarkable, I mean, this rocket is built for big things, supersized, with an incredible lift capability. But to do that in a way that's sustainable, using reusable hardware, I think that for me is the biggest innovation for New Glenn.
100%. Reusability. It is such a critical component of reducing the costs of future access to space. You just can't say enough how important reusability is.
And so New Glenn also has that second stage rocket, right? We talked about the first stage and the second stage, and rocket fans know this, but just like Saturn V or other big launchers, rockets fly in the first stage and the second stage with the job of the first stage, or sometimes what we call the booster, to lift the vehicle from Earth up to space. The stages will then separate, and it's the second stage that powers our payload into orbit.
So here you see another cool overlay. Oh, you saw it just a moment ago of the Saturn V rocket. I mean, we are just about the same height, and the power of the two vehicles and the significance to be compared to that is amazing. And you know what? Our game plan, like Saturn V, our game plan is to use New Glenn to go to the moon too. I hope you host that webcast with me too on that one. Coming here shortly. So that's our orbital rocket in a nutshell. Now, while we've got a couple minutes to go here, we're at T-minus 28 minutes to go until New Glenn's first launch. Why don't we check in with our teammates over at Cars Park? Eddie, you there?
Yeah, hey Ariane, we're here at Cars Park. We're less than 6 miles as the crow flies to Launch Complex 36. We can see a great view of New Glenn standing 320 feet tall, the 2 vehicle access towers, one of the largest water towers in the world, and we are ready. Aren't we ready, team?
Now, it does need to be said that if you are wanting to see a rocket launch, this is probably one of the best to see actually from the Cape, because it's the closest to like Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, of all the pads, and it's massive. It does take up like the entire view when you look north. So besides Starship, which you can see from Isla Blanca, which is about 5 miles or 8 kilometers away, this is just a little bit further, so 6 miles. 9-ish kilometers away, or actually 10 kilometers away. And it's, it would be a really, really good launch to see. It would actually be a New Glenn launch from Cape Canaveral. I'd say that's probably about as good as it gets on the Cape, and maybe as good as it gets anywhere other than we get pretty spoiled down at Starbase. So I do want to point out a few things that I really want to reiterate that they've kind of talked about, but if this thing gets into orbit, that'd be, I expect it to get into orbit because of the kind of the nature of this program. It's been a little bit more traditional. They've kind of done things slower. They don't, aren't taking huge risks off the bat with a minimum viable product. They're launching this thing expecting it to be basically operational, right? So I'm expecting it to be orbital. However, the landing, if they landed on the first try ever, I mean, come on, that would be huge. And there is some expectation. I'm about 50-50 whether or not they could land on the first try. But yeah, if they can do that, that'd be pretty amazing. By the way, you're not missing anything if you're missing this part, because they're just talking about the view and the crowd and stuff. So we'll bring it back in once they start talking more things about the launch and the countdown and any new information, which I think they're coming back in with it right now.
One employee on the New Glenn team that is not down there with Eddie, and I do want to give a special call out to our program leader for New Glenn, Jarrett Jones. Jarrett has led the New Glenn program for years, and I'm very grateful to be able to call him a friend. He has a deep background in aerospace. There he is. And he's been instrumental through the build up to today's launch. I mean, there you see him just a moment ago, and let's see, can we point him out here in launch control? Yes, he is there, kind of that first row, bottom left. There you go, checking in, got his eyes glued to his screen, talking to one of our long-term core employees here. We got Mark Featherstone, who has been also leading this program for a long time. And man, and you saw that image just a moment ago with him in front of the New Glenn. That was the day that we installed the 7 engines on New Glenn for the first time. And I'm pretty sure he is absolutely psyched. You also see the gentleman in the center of that front row in the green sweatshirt. That is Dave Limp, our CEO, who joined us just about a year ago. And man, talk about sparking some fire. It has been wonderful to have him on the team with us, and he is clearly absolutely dialed in. And last but not least, in between Jarrett and Dave, Jeff Bezos, our founder, who of course has been thinking about this day for many years. And I should also throw in a special happy birthday to Jeff. What a day. I wouldn't mind having a rocket launch on my birthday, but this man deserves it. So much patience, commitment, passion for what we're doing. It's just, we are very lucky, Denise, to have such a leadership team here supporting us at Blue as we go through all of these programs and getting them off and going. But at the middle of many of them and the core to making a lot of this work, New Glenn. That's why today is so important. Okay, everybody, we're at T-minus 23 minutes to go until launch. It is so great to have you all joining us for today's inaugural launch. We have folks tuning in from all over for this big day, and of course we had Eddie and the team down at Cars Park. But we also wanted to give a nod to a couple special groups watching from across the nation. We've got employees tuned in at multiple sites.
Let's go back to answering a few more of your guys' questions. I did see we had that question that went up for just a second and then it disappeared, asking if I weigh 85 kilograms, how many newtons of thrust would it take to lift me off of the moon? So let's do that real quick. So 85 kilograms, to get to newtons, you just multiply it by 9.8. So 85 times 9.8 would be 833 newtons, so almost a kilonewton, but we divide by, divide it by 6. Yeah, there we go. So divided by 6 to get lunar gravity. So you need at least 138 newtons of thrust to lift an 85 kilogram human off of the moon. So there's your answer. Let's see. What do you think Starship will? What from Braxton Greathouse? When do you think Starship will try a refuel test for the lunar mission? I expect it this year, assuming they can go orbital here in the next few launches, and assuming within the next few launches after that they can do a catch of Starship. I expect them to begin refueling tests very quick. I do probably expect them to have the next pad up before they do that. And I think that's going to be the long item, which I don't expect until summer at this point to see the new pad being online. But maybe. I would love if we saw an orbital refueling test happen. For sure this year would be great. That'd be really good. I hope maybe by late summer, early fall, we see an orbital refueling test. But we'll see. Flight 7 will definitely help us know how that's looking. This is from Noah Ronaldo. I learn rocket science from you, sometimes such as rocket failures, landings, launches, and other things. I always wonder how much thrust does New Glenn have to launch? So yeah, it has approximately, I think it's 17 meganewtons of thrust. It's about half the amount of thrust as a Saturn V rocket. It's pretty close to the amount of thrust of Falcon Heavy, so it's a very large amount of thrust. It's a very large rocket. And yeah, I think there's 23-ish meganewtons of thrust on Falcon Heavy. Again,
that everything is clear downrange. That's both the water and in the air. And I haven't heard anything thus far, Ariane.
Well, thank you, Maggie. So great to have you up there, keeping us tuned into all of the action. As we noted, we've got launch control and mission control right back to back. We'll be checking in again with you in a couple of minutes. Okay, we're at T-minus 19 minutes and 50 seconds to go until our targeted liftoff. So we're getting closer and closer. And we want to point out a few things coming up ahead in our countdown, because some of them actually come in a pretty quick sequence.
Yeah, so coming up, we're going to have a planned weather check. This is where our teams take one last look at the weather for launch today. This weather check validates that our trajectory is still on track, and the team will continue to close out any remaining open items that could be on their dashboard.
The very capable folks in launch control upstairs will undoubtedly be checking through closeouts over the next few minutes or so. And once we get through those, we'll start to go into some final vehicle checks. So do you want to walk us through those final vehicle checks?
Once we get to about T-4 terminal count, we're going to transition New Glenn into where our auto sequence begins. And the operation really becomes hands-off for our operators. We're going to be switching New Glenn to internal power, internal hydraulics, and things will move really quickly from there.
And then, as we approach the final moments, and just before we light the engines, there's this water deluge.
It's a huge water deluge. This is going to engulf the flame trench completely, which is going to protect our rocket from vibroacoustic and thermal loading. Finally, autopilot will be enabled. We'll flex the gimbaling engines, and then, well, ignition.
Game on, ignition. I cannot wait for that moment. So all of this is very exciting, even to just hear said out loud. I think there's also a very specific sequence for starting the first stage engines. And talk us through that, because it's not like they just all turn on at once. We got to be careful about how we sequence the engines igniting.
Correct. So you might think that we ignite all 7 BE4s at once, but that's actually not the case. We do something called a staggered start sequence. Engines 1, 4, and 7 will light first, followed by engines 2, 3, 5, and 6. Now, of course, these will happen in a very quick succession, but the staggering start really helps to decrease the sudden pressure on the whole system. There just truly is so much power in those BE4 engines. So staggering them creates a more smooth on-ramp for all that power.
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about the rocket, but you can't forget the ground systems as well, right? So when we are essentially protecting the rocket from the vibration and all that power coming out of the engine, we're also protecting the launch pad itself, right? You see from the map that you showed us earlier how close we are to the water. The water table is just a couple of feet below the launch pad. And I should really talk, a lot of engineering went into the complete refurbishment of our launch complex. And so we want to take care of it. It's there for the long haul. But man, we got a big old powerful rocket. So this water deluge system is critical to both the rocket and the ground.
Okay, let's answer a few more questions here while we wait, because the clock just moved to 37 minutes.
Just had a clock update here. We are T-minus
Let's see if they
7 minutes and 20 seconds to go until launch. As we mentioned, this is kind of what we can expect from our team as they get aligned and ready to go into launch today. So they just need a couple more minutes, and that's A-OK. You know, we say this on the New Shepard webcast as well, which is we have spent years designing this rocket and, you know, months building it and months going into designing this operation. If we need a couple more minutes before we press go on this thing, that is A-OK with all of us. So with that, why don't we take a moment here to check out this beautiful New Glenn rocket on the pad getting ready for its first mission to space ever.
Okay, perfect. Now we can answer a few of your questions. And like I said, guys, I mean, if you're upset about so far what amounts to a 1-hour scrub, then welcome to the party. I mean, this is very normal for a first launch of a brand new rocket. I mean, who remembers the early Starhopper days, SN5 and 6, the SN8, SN9, SN10? I mean, any new vehicle will have some teething pains. Vulcan, SLS, oh my dear God, let's not think about the SLS delays that there were. Very normal. If it launches tonight, I'll be honestly pretty impressed. Because it's kind of normal. It's not really a big deal. They don't owe us anything as casual viewers of this. It'd be great to see though. I really hope that it takes off tonight. That'd be great for me because of schedule and sleep. Would be very fun. But meanwhile, we can answer some more questions. Let's start off with a few more engine questions, because you know me, I love rocket engines. From Noah Ronaldo again, you're getting some good questions in here, my friend. Asking, what type of engines does the New Glenn use? So there are a total of 9 engines altogether on the vehicle. There's 7 BE4 engines that run on methane. They are closed cycle, oxygen-rich closed cycle engines, and they run, technically they say liquefied natural gas, which is another question that I'll answer here in a second. But yeah, they're very powerful. They're about as really close to the same amount of thrust right now as Raptor. They're a little bit bigger. They're a little bit less efficient than Raptor because they're not full flow stage combustion cycle. But they are still closed cycle, which is fantastic. That's what we want and expect out of a large vehicle, a new launch vehicle these days. We kind of want that technology in there. We don't want open cycle on a vehicle of this class and size, and that's how they're getting a lot of the performance, is by not wasting any propellant, spinning up the gas generator and spinning the turbines, powering the gas generator and spinning the turbines. So yeah, BE4 engines, they're awesome. There's 7 of those on the first stage. The second stage has 2 BE3Us, which are open expander cycle. They're bleed expander cycle. Which means that the expander cycle is really cool. Because the expander cycle, and we'll talk about this, I saw another question that will wrap all this together perfectly. The expander cycle is where you take the latent heat from the engine. Don't forget, I'm going to go back to my beautiful bottle of water. A rocket engine obviously is extremely hot, and it wants to melt everything that it touches, right? That the combustion process and the flames touch, right? They're going to try to melt the walls of the rocket engine. So in order to prevent them from melting, a very common trick for preventing rocket engines from melting is to use regenerative cooling. This is where you literally flow. Oh, maybe a little update.
3 minutes and 53 seconds to go until New Glenn's first launch. We are so happy to have you all joining us for this historic launch, both here in the U.S. and everywhere around the world. Denise, tell our audience, where are we up to in the preparation of our vehicle?
So right now we're completing a systems functional check for New Glenn, and this is critical because we're ensuring that all of our systems are operating nominally. We're going to verify propulsion, avionics, guidance, communications, and even safety systems. Our engineers are also running diagnostics on all the BE4s and BE3Us. We're checking flight computers, we're checking telemetry. We're also going to do one final comm check. This is really crucial because we want to make sure that we're getting the right data between the rocket and the ground, as well as verifying the signal integrity. Now coming up, we're going to do one last weather check. This is where we get real-time data on wind speed, direction, temperature, humidity, cloud cover, lightning, even thunderstorms. Not just for the LC-36 pad, but we're also checking the weather where the Jacklyn is, so that she's ready to receive our booster. So that is where we are right now. Things are going to move quickly here.
Thanks, Denise. And yeah, we should reiterate again, the weather, we got to take into consideration the weather here, but also downrange where the landing ship is, the Jacklyn. We've mentioned it earlier. Of course, that was one of the reasons why we needed to take a little bit more time before getting to launch this evening. The sea state out there, it was a little rough. They were rocking and rolling. And we want to give our rocket the best chance of coming into land and sticking that landing on the Jacklyn. There is the Jacklyn ready to receive the first stage of New Glenn so we can take it back home, refurbish it, put another payload on top and go again. But again, we should reiterate some of our objectives for today. The primary objective is to go to space, go to orbit safely. That's number one. And if we happen to land this booster, as we mentioned before, there are going to be a lot of people losing their minds, mine as well. So stay tuned for that. Now, Denise, why don't you go through a little bit more of the flow down there? So the Blue Ring team is up in mission control right now, also surely tracking their own checklist as they make sure the Pathfinder payload is ready to go to launch as well.
Correct, yeah. So upstairs at the MC, we'll have a launch control and mission control. So our launch team is the one that's doing all these system checks on New Glenn, while mission control is making sure that they're doing similar system checks for the Blue Ring Pathfinder.
Wonderful. And let's take a second and dig in a little bit more on that payload. The Pathfinder is a cool piece of technology, and really it's just the initial demo for a vehicle program called Blue Ring that's quite far along in its own development. And we mentioned this earlier, today's demo is a non-separating payload. This means the payload tonight is going to stay attached to New Glenn's second stage for the entire 6-hour mission. The other thing I want to reiterate about this, this Blue Ring Pathfinder is it's going to be testing a lot of the same technology, but it's not the Blue Ring itself. It's not the same form factor, but we're going to learn a lot from this evening. Now, what we want to, excuse me, I should say, as we talk about the Blue Ring Pathfinder, I want to reiterate that it's attached to the second stage and it will stay there as it orbits the Earth. And that also is not normal, but we wanted to do that for today's demo mission. Now, today's demo mission on the Pathfinder is going to prove out some important components of our future vehicle, Blue Ring. And I get really excited. Clearly, I get so nervous I get excited talking about this. I love this program. It's one that I've had a hand in getting off the ground for the past year as part of Blue's in-space systems team. But I want to take you deeper into Blue Ring. Let's check out this video.
Oh, this is actually, unfortunately, we'll probably get hit with copyright strikes. But this is something that I really want to learn because I still don't quite understand what Blue Ring is. Here, there's Blue Ring is part of building that base layer of infrastructure. So it's just it's a satellite bus basically. Okay, so let me go back to answering what what regenerative cooling is and the expander cycle. The BE3 you're using tap off expander cycle bleed. Okay, so you're pumping that propellant through the walls of your combustion chamber and your nozzle in order to prevent it from melting. In doing so, you're taking a lot of the heat energy out of the walls and you're putting it into the fuel, which then, thanks to phase change and stuff, basically you can think of it as like boiling off. It's not necessarily always boiling off, but you can think of it as boiling off and having a lot of pressure being built up in that system. So instead of then putting that back into the engine, or not back into the engine, but into the combustion chamber for the first time, instead you can have that high pressure gas spin the turbine. Then in a normal expander cycle, that pressure has to be high enough to spin the pump, to keep the pump pressure high enough, but then also be higher pressure after spinning the pump to still go into the combustion chamber. So what happens is you end up with a very limited amount of thrust. So the bleed cycle means that you bleed off some or all of that exhaust or all of that gas that goes through the turbine, and therefore you can overcome those limitations because you can just bleed it out. It can be you can extract as much energy out of that gas as you want without having to have it be a higher amount of pressure than inside your combustion chamber, so it doesn't go backwards, if that makes sense. That's the BE3U. This is on the topic of, we were talking about the BE4 and liquid natural gas and methane. So what's the difference between methane and liquid natural gas? So liquid natural gas is kind of the overall thing. Liquid natural gas has methane, it has propane, it has ethane. So liquid natural gas is kind of a catch-all. It's kind of like saying cars and then specifying like sports car or whatever. It's like a category kind of. It's the encompassing. So you can liquid methane is a natural gas. Natural gas is not necessarily methane. It can have other trace elements in it or other elements in it. So so you can refine it down to pure methane if you want, and that's how that works. Mason Duncan wants to know, when will the new die-cast model rockets be available in your store? They are finally shipping to our stores. They have been completed production, and I think Falcon 9 has also completed another run as well. But it's going to be really incredible to see the first rockets ever flown in the United States with humans on board, the Mercury Atlas and Mercury Redstone, next to a Falcon 9. Looks ridiculous. It seriously blows my mind, and it's going to make for an awesome rocket garden. Not too busy. How much would impact if one of the 3 gimbling engines fails? That's a really good question. It would be quite an impact. It'd be could be detrimental. But now here's the deal. I don't know if they also supplement some of the control scheme by having thrust differential, where they could throttle the engines to be able to help steer and guide the vehicle. I would picture, though, that you just need the gimbals to work. Just like with almost every other rocket, if you lose gimbals, you lose your engine, you lose your control, and you lose your rocket. So I do think, I think it's going to be pretty important to keep all 3 of those engines that do gimbling. How do New Glen's performance compare to the rockets like Ariane 6 or Falcon Heavy? It's very close in performance to Falcon Heavy, a little bit less to Leo, depending on partial reusability versus full reusability, et cetera, et cetera. If you were trying to land all 3 cores of Falcon Heavy, it would be able to put up a little bit more into low Earth orbit. However, compared to landing the booster of New Glenn. However, if you we're going to geostationary transfer orbit and still trying to reuse all 3 cores, then New Glenn would have the upper hand just slightly. So they're really close, depending on the mission profile. One might outperform the other just a little bit. And it's very comparable to the Ariane 6 in performance. This is Idris talking again about the gimbling engines being 3 in a row. I imagine controlling the roll in BNG be extremely important as your axis of control change with respect of your rocket's roll. Yes, but that's always the case. I mean, literally, so you don't have to do you don't have to have the engines all slewing, like this together. They can also slew like this. There's enough clearance to build it. You see it all the time with like Raptors. There's 33 Raptor engines. If it tilts 13 degrees, so it becomes more of a fancy problem for navigation, for guidance and navigation, to be able to handle it. If there is a roll, it doesn't negate it out in its trajectory. But yeah, it's relatively trivial. Those engines can gimbal on 360 degrees of axes there. This is cool, from DMMMeth. DMMMeth. Or, yeah. My dad is the senior director of the Stage 1 fluids for New Glenn. That is awesome. I really am wishing your dad and the rest of the teams the best of luck. Liam the Rocket Nerd, Scott Manley recalled when they said that it would eventually use a third stage, and he suggested they would use Centaur, the Centaur V or 5. I don't know if they call it Centaur 5 or probably Centaur 5. Would this be a good idea? What are the drawbacks? Well, the good idea part of it, if you wanted to use a third stage, if you really needed some high energy potential, is that A, it can fit it inside the fairing, B, it already has liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen at the pad, which is also what Centaur uses. I mean, that would be a ridiculous, I don't know what you would need that for. Most of the time when I think of a third stage, I think of like a kick stage, like an orbital transfer vehicle, something that can change orbits and get into some more unique orbits and things like that, as opposed to having to relight and push around your, a nearly empty upper stage. Sometimes you can gain some additional performance just by, by having a little smaller kick stage. We see that quite often, especially with small sat launchers, because it does make sense. But I don't know about using a Centaur for that. Good question. From Shumi, can you explain why some rockets have an instantaneous launch window and others can have a few hours? A lot of it, most of the time, depends on the destination. Since this is simply a demonstration mission, they have a large launch window because, frankly, the payload's not going into anywhere particular. They're throwing it really far. They're throwing it on quite the elliptical trajectory of thousands of kilometers away, a very highly elliptical orbit around the Earth. But it's not rendezvousing with anything. It's not getting to a precise geostationary orbit, into a precise orbital slot or anything like that. They're just hucking this thing, right? They're just yeeting it as much as they can, and that's all they need to do, right? So there's not really, whenever it fits, the main constraint today is likely probably just the clearances for downrange, because they're not only launching, but they're also landing. So there's probably going to be pretty large margins around the exclusion zones, and they want to make sure that there's no marine traffic, no air traffic, and holding those things closed for too long is probably a large constraint for them. So 3 hours is probably just a good safe bet. Let's see if they're going to update us at all, but hold on. Okay. But other vehicles, lots of times, like say you're launching to the International Space Station is a very good example, because the International Space Station not only is on a specific orbit at 51.6 degrees inclination, so it's at an angle relative to the equator and relative to the poles. It's at a 51.6 degrees, and the Earth is spinning underneath it. So you got this hula hoop type thing with a ball spinning underneath it, right? A globe spinning underneath it. So not only do you have to line up when your launch pad crosses or is about to intercept that orbit, but also you have to line up with when the spacecraft you're trying to rendezvous with is in the right part of the orbit too. So that's why an instantaneous launch window is like, literally, if you miss it by 1 second, you're going to be so far off. And then take it to vehicles like the Falcon 9 that use super chilled propellant. That propellant kind of has a small operating window where it's at the proper temperature, proper pressures, all these things. And so they basically just say, once they start loading propellant, they just have this perfect countdown, and it's not technically always instantaneous, but it might as well be instantaneous, and they treat it as if it was instantaneous. Hopefully that answers your questions. Thank you so much again, LS4222. I did a quick update that the 1/100 scale Redstone Atlas and Mercury Atlas, Mercury Redstone will hopefully be out here in the next month or two. This is from Chris Franklin. Tim, I've met Charlie Duke several times. He's my favorite astronaut. Ask him about the time he was driving the only vehicle on the 14.6 square mile surface and couldn't find a place to park. I will ask. That's actually a really good question. This is from Patrick. This will be an exciting next few days. Greetings from Germany. Honestly, this is like the craziest week of spaceflight for me personally. You guys know I don't cover every launch. Just for the record, a lot of people always go, where have you been? You're not posting anymore. Since I've started this, since I've been doing YouTube since 2018, I more or less do a video a month-ish and a stream once or twice a month. Same upload schedule, same stream schedule since 2018. look back at my feed, nothing has changed. Yet people are always like, you've been gone and all this. No, I haven't. I've been doing the same thing forever. And I always get like this Mandela effect that people think I did like news or something. And I don't do news. I don't cover every rocket launch. I cover what I can, when I can, and when I want to. Frankly, like, I want to be excited about things. And this is a mission that's exciting to me. The transporter mission that I'm covering out here in California is exciting to me. Starship Flight 7 and the booster catch is exciting to me. Yeah, frankly, I do what I want and what I can, and yeah. But this is a crazy week. This is a crazy week with New Glenn potentially launching. That's huge. With Starship hopefully doing another catch attempt, that's huge. I mean, this is really, really exciting stuff. There's also 2 lunar landers being launched by a Falcon 9 that I probably can't cover that I would love to cover, including Firefly's Blue Ghost. Oh, there's just a lot. Okay, let's answer a few more questions. This is a good question from Jack. When is the pointy end up check? I better do that here before we get to we've still got 30 minutes. Yeah. The pointy end up. We remind me to do that before like T-10 or something. DP Huber Sai, did I see myself in the promo video? I did not. I want to see that. I gotta find that. Chris Franklin, what is the timeline from launch to landing burn? Great question. They tweeted about it, and I think I actually saved it on my phone because I have been traveling. So let's see here. Liftoff is, guess when liftoff is in the timeline? Bet you can't guess. T0. Okay, the booster, re-entry booster, hopefully the booster touches down 9.5 minutes, basically. 9 minutes and 28 seconds to be precise is the approximate time of booster touchdown, assuming, but here's kind of the timeline for the booster, because the booster has quite the ride. So max Q is at T plus 1 minute and 39 seconds. MECO, main engine cutoff, is 3 minutes and 10 seconds. So that's a pretty long burn. You know, the Falcon 9 typically runs 2 minutes and 20 seconds, 2:30, 2:40 maybe, but I don't think I've ever seen any like an expended Falcon 9 maybe will go 3 minutes, but 3 minutes and 10 seconds is quite a long first stage burn. So it means it has a lot of potential. It's putting a lot of energy into the upper stage, and that's a good thing because that upper stage also has a lot of potential. So that's crazy. Let's see, booster re-entry burn happens at T plus 7 minutes and 17 seconds. The booster re-entry burn complete, so it lasts almost 30 seconds long. 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Then about a minute later, they hope to land. The landing burn is 8 minutes and 52 seconds. Dang. I can't wait for that. And one fun fact, though, I don't really want this to scrub because I want to be able to go to bed tonight. I've got a big day tomorrow and an even bigger day the next day. But one thing that is good about it pushing back, so now we are at 3. Okay, so it's about 1,000 kilometers downrange east. Oh, I think even at the end of their launch window, I'll bet it still won't be landing in daylight. No, I don't think it will. Dang it. I was going to say, at this point, okay, never mind. I want this thing to launch as soon as possible. Thank you so much from Adric Me. Always nice to have you along for the ride. Thank you. I'm happy that I was able to do this one. Space Boy, Logan Mulligan. Tim, this Tuesday, are you going to be at SatGus viewing party, or will you be closer to the launch? I will be at the SatGus viewing party. I am co-hosting it, and we're providing the live stream for Mark Rober. It's going to be very exciting. So if you see me, come say hi, Logan. Well, don't say hi, Logan. Say hi, Tim. But Logan, come say hi. There you go. Travis says, who thinks that Blue Origin will launch again this year if they even fly tonight? I think they'll fly again this year. Assuming there's not like a huge inherent flaw they find with the vehicle when it lifts off, I expect them to fly several times this year. I really hope for 3 or 4 flights this year. This is Ed Powell. I can't wait until the next rocket, New Grissom. Well, no, they already have New Shepard. Grissom only flew also a suborbital launch. The next one would be New Armstrong, which is a moon rocket, right? So you have New Shepard, which is named after Alan Shepard, a suborbital rocket. You have New Glenn, named after John Glenn, the first U.S. astronaut who went into orbit. So an orbital rocket, New Glenn, orbital. Then you have New Armstrong, which is rumored to be their even bigger vehicle that would be capable of. Oh, this is cool. I haven't seen these updated animations with a little refueling vehicle looking thing. That was cool. But yeah, then New Armstrong would be an even bigger, huge vehicle. I'm sorry you feel that way, Nicholas. You're welcome to do whatever you want with your funds. Ex-Captain Taco X, New Glenn is unable to make it to the moon, while India is unable to land on the moon without crashing is equally humorous. God, I almost read that as humongous and then humongous, but is equally humorous. I don't think any of those things are honestly that comparable, but yeah, you do you. Corey Kramer, why doesn't Starship use the same technology for Raptor nozzles as the heat shield? Why not use regenerative cooling in the walls of the rocket engine? That's a great question. So you need to have something power that most of the time. So Stoke Space, I have a video about Stoke Space, and I hope to do an update with them here soon this year. But Stoke Space has a regenerative heat shield concept, but the key is that they're using the expander cycle already to power that engine and that system on that upper stage. So you have to have a system that can still push and propel and move the fluid through the heat shield. If you don't have a system to pump and circulate that fluid, it's just going to be stale, it's just going to burn off, and it's going to be gone. So there's not an inherent system there to pump. You could, of course, add pumps and things like that, but now you're adding more weight. Yeah, that's what I think. Liam the Rocket Nerd, always great to hear from you. Do you think they will do a landing leg deployment test and forward canards movement test like they did with New Shepard? Oh, I would like to see that, but I kind of doubt it. I mean, they did it on a ground equipment last year, but I don't think they have room to do it on the pad. I don't think they're Transporter Erector, the giant thing behind the rocket that stands it up. I don't think they have clearance there to extend the legs. That would be my guess. Fun fact, for those of you that don't know, I have an awesome video with Jeff Bezos walking through the factory, but then there's part 2 that a lot of people seem to miss, where we literally went out to the launch pad and saw, it was a Pathfinder, which is basically a mock-up at the time, plus went up next to the Transporter Erector, looked down on the flame trench, went up in that launch tower that you see to the right. It's huge. You don't get a sense of scale when you're looking at something like this. It's really, really, really big. I'm trying to look for something that's even human relatable in these shots, because it's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell how massive it is. I mean, this thing is almost as big as Starship. It's 98 meters tall. Starship's a little over 120 meters tall these days. It's 7 meters wide. Starship's 9 meters wide. So it's much bigger it's way closer to Starship than it is to Falcon 9 in size, which is impressive. Let's see here. Highland Aerospace, sorry about we have moderators. To be honest though, I don't know. I kind of just ignore chat, and we have people that are pushing me the good comments. I mean, just ignore them. Let people do whatever they want. They're going to be idiots if they're idiots, and they're going to be pleasant human beings if they're pleasant human beings. It's kind of that simple. We do try to catch people that are repeatedly offending, but to be honest, I've kind of just let moderators. I've told them to relax, because whatever. People are going to be people, which is too bad. I'd rather just foster an environment where people feel like they can add to the conversation, and where they can hang out and be excited about spaceflight. And it is a shame that you see people talking about so many things that have nothing to do with any of this stuff, and it can be insulting and it can be degrading. But yeah, that's up to them, and I hope that people learn to mature and just enjoy stuff together. This is from Johanna Langer. I've been watching since the spacesuit days. Huge thanks for all you do. Vulcan versus New Glenn versus Starship. What are the payload capabilities and thrust to weight ratios? Who's the champ? So thrust to weight ratios, I have no idea. Starship is pretty close to 1.5 off the pad. New Glenn, don't know. And Vulcan, it depends on the amount of solid rocket boosters. Yeah. As far as payload capabilities, New Glenn is basically in the lowest configuration. Vulcan is the lowest, then New Glenn, then Starship. But Vulcan, in its highest configuration, ironically, can get the most mass to geostationary transfer orbit. So it depends. There's so many variables. I did a video comparing Vulcan to other rockets. Let me see if I actually did. I don't recall if I can. I don't think I compared it to New Glenn, because I think I was just comparing it to like active rockets at the time. But I did that about a year ago. This is from Zach. What do you think about rumored 9-engine New Glenn? Think we'll ever see that come to fruition? I've only heard that in like literally comments. I've never really seen it. I don't know. I've honestly never really seen any real rumors of a 9-engine New Glenn. I think if they're going to go up from New Glenn, they're going to go to a new architecture like New Armstrong, and or pursue full reusability in the second stage, which Jeff talked about in my interview with him, where he was saying that basically they have two teams. One team is racing to make the upper stage so cheap and so powerful and so high performing that it still makes sense to just expend the upper stage. And the reusable team is trying to make it so cheap and actually reusable enough that it makes sense to never throw away the upper stage. And they're excited to see who wins. From Aki, what fuel is New Glenn using? So on the first stage, it uses methane. Well, technically they call it liquid natural gas, but it's more or less methane on the first stage. And the upper stage uses hydrolux, so which is hydrogen and liquid oxygen. And methane, by the way, that's the fuel. The oxidizer is, of course, liquid oxygen. Yeah, 2 hours of sleep it is. I know. I'm feeling you. I'm just flew in today, so I'm already 2 hours off schedule, and I've been going to bed earlier the last few days, so I'm very much feeling it. I really hope this thing takes off, because yeah, it feels like 1 a.m. to me, basically. Richard wants to know how long of a launch window do they have tonight. This morning they have a 3-hour launch window, and we're coming up on. We're not even an hour into the launch window, so really wish me luck. Nate Saunders, hopefully we'll see this beast fly and land today. Thanks for the coverage, Tim. Thank you so much, Nate, and thanks for the 7 months of membership. You're amazing. Pro Fishinger, do you think Starship will be caught on Flight 8? Oh, I don't know if I see Starship being caught on Flight 8 yet. I would love it. Maybe. I'm a firm maybe on Starship. If V2 flies really well, sorry, not V2. If Block 2 Starship, if this new Starship upgrade, if it does well in a few days and really comes back looking fantastic and they really have the control they need out of it, I could see them maybe going for it. That'd be fantastic. That'd really be fantastic. Liam, how do gaseous injectors work? Isn't the whole point of an injector to atomize the liquid? Do the injectors just mix them? And how do they keep gases from combusting in probably injector? So I don't honestly know too much about how gaseous injectors work, but you actually, yes, an injector, you want to atomize the propellant, right? You want it to go from, you take two liquids and try to ignite them, it's not going to work very well. You actually want them to be gaseous. The next best thing to gaseous is being atomized, very fine particles of liquid. There's a lot of surface area, and it's very easy to have it phase change into a gas. Now, yeah, I think it's just the same thing. Like, a Raptor engine, the two propellants are coming into the combustion chamber as hot gases. They are ready to ignite. Ooh, that's a nice camera. Yes, that's like a flame trench cam. Now we're talking, but it's thermal too. That is very cool. The fact that the clock's still counting down is satisfying. So yeah, how do you keep the gases from combusting in the injector? Well, the injector, still is separate. So let's say you have an injector plate. Think of like a shower head. Think of a shower head in a shower. It has a bunch of holes. Every other hole, or sometimes you have like impinging injectors, you have 2 injectors pointing, and the 2 that are pointing in are your fuel, and the middle one is the oxidizer, and then they don't even touch or make contact until inside the combustion chamber. So as long as your pressure upstream is higher than the pressure inside the combustion chamber, then yeah, it won't flow backwards. It'll always flow in the path of least resistance, which is through the large opening of the nozzle. So eventually it all, yes, there's a lot of pressure inside that combustion chamber. That's why you have to have even more powerful pumps to be pushing it all in the right direction. Matthew Tran, do we know if New Glenn will ever be crew rated? Yeah, I think there's talks of it being crew rated and certified for human spaceflight, which would be fantastic. From Dima Crab, what would be more impressive, Blue landing on the first try or SpaceX catching Starship on the first try? When they both very impressive either way. I mean, they're both equally impressive in my opinion. I mean, any new system like this, and well, in some ways, I gotta be honest, in some ways, I would actually say landing New Glenn would be more impressive on its first try. Because, hear me out, totally new system on every single front, by far, like completely brand new to them, right? Starship, on the other hand, I kind of expect them to catch it because they've had so many pinpoint landing accuracies with Starship already. So in a way, they've already practiced that. They've practiced it at scale from nearly orbital velocity, re-entering pinpoint landing. I kind of expect it. So, yeah, I would almost argue that New Glenn landing on the first try would be more impressive in a way, but both just incredibly impressive.
About the wealth of experience in the New Glenn launch and mission control rooms upstairs, and I want to take it back to Maggie upstairs, who is standing by up there. Maggie, you with us?
Yep, Ariane, I am back at mission control, and as we make our way towards terminal count, the energy is high. It might seem like it's a little quiet with everyone sitting down, but the communications are ongoing. The launch director and his team are working super hard to get us there.
I love it. They're in the zone. So, Maggie, I'd love for you to talk us through some of the people behind the mission up there. Walk us through who's on console.
We've got some of our best and brightest here in the Mission Control Center. So the Mission Control Center is actually a network of rooms. We've got Mission Control, Launch Control, and engineering support rooms where our team is looking through data constantly. Now this whole team is led by our launch director. His name is Ben Dykstra. Ben is responsible for the launch, tip to tail. He is doing the go, no.
Okay, we've kind of gone through some of these people already, and I don't mean to talk over the broadcast too much, but when it's repeated information, I'd like to just keep answering your questions. I hope you guys are okay with that. If not, you can always pull up the official stream or rewatch it later. Liam, the rocket nerd, how does the aerospike like Stoke Space work with no spike or linear aerospike-esque spike? So it's not about the spike. It's about having a wall to react against. The easiest thing to think about, this is perfect actually right here, is AirPods case. So if you have, well, let's start with something else first. A rocket engine, if you think about it like, okay, here we go. Rocket engine, aka coffee cup. A normal rocket engine with a normal combustion chamber and nozzle, the gas is expanding inside of basically a conical shape, and that expansion of gas is what helps push, right? It's reacting against that. Aerospike is the opposite. Instead of pushing outwards, it's pushing inward. Like, think about squeezing an ice cube. If you squeeze it, I don't really want to huck my AirPods. There you go. I hope you're happy. If you squeeze it enough, right, it's the squeezing against the walls that makes it have an exerting force against the vehicle, right? So an aerospike isn't about having this giant spike per se. It's about having pressure squeeze in against something. Stoke Space, you'll notice that despite it not having, so normally a lot of aerospikes still have a truncated spike, so they cut off the spike. But the base of Stoke Space's heat shield still has angled walls, and those angled walls, the nozzles and the exhaust pressure can still squeeze against, as well as create a pressure system underneath the base of the vehicle, and that all exerts a force. So yeah, it's kind of about that. George Funk, thank you so much. I know you probably can't even read that, you guys, on screen. But George Funk is extremely generous and has had 51 months of membership. Huge thank you. That is what keeps all this stuff possible. So thank you so much for your ongoing support, seriously. Oh no, was his birthday on the 11th? I don't know, I didn't look it up. But that would have been cool to launch on his birthday. Let's see here. From Fletcher Boy, in your opinion, which is the better method? SpaceX expect failure and then learn, or NASA Blue Origin approach to mitigate failure before launch? I would say that Blue Origin's a little bit less traditional than like SLS, and a little bit less traditional than like Vulcan in the sense of development and stuff like that. But I like the SpaceX method of just minimum viable product, launch it. If it blows stuff up, who cares? You just sweep it away and try again. But both of them have their critics, I'll tell you that. You're not getting away from the critics on either side, because one, it's like, why is this taking so long? You're not doing anything. They can't do anything. All they're doing is blowing up. And both of them are probably going to lead to fantastic vehicles. And frankly, both of them are on kind of similar time frames. New Glenn arguably has been, in development for longer, but so has, Falcon X, before it was BFR, before it was the MCT, before it was Starship, has also been around for a long time, kind of in early stages. Okay, real quick, we better do a very quick pointy end up, flamey end down check. This is the perfect view. I can confirm, even through distant ocular assessment, through digital pixels, can confirm that the pointy end is up and the flamey end is down. This shot ain't doing it for me though now, so they pay me so much for this pointy end up, flamey down check, and then they change the camera. Then they change it right in front of me. Back to Fletcher Boy. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think they're frankly both acceptable options, and I wish, in my opinion, I wish that Blue Origin would have tried something a little bit faster or sooner. I wish that they would have had something flying 5 years ago, and then learned from it and made it better and improved, and started to get that cadence picked up. Start with a simple, expendable rocket first if you want to learn avionics, and then add to it. But they didn't, and I expect them to do really well with this launch. On the other hand, SpaceX, I kind of wish sometimes they would not just totally, forego a launch, water deluge system and launch on a more traditional launch pad, and it's, and et cetera, et cetera. And I don't have as high expectations when SpaceX launches, because I'm like, they're just trying something, who cares? So it's a blend. It's truly a blend. From Guillerme Trempe, why is the ice on the rocket freezing in a horizontal lines pattern? So I think that just has to do with the stringers on the inside of the second stage, the slosh baffles, just some of the features on the second stage that you just see collecting ice differently than other parts. That's just my guess. Thank you so much from Scott Hemphill. I'm missing a lot of very generous support from Thomas C. Why did they start fueling so early? That's just they start fueling more about 4.5 hours before T0. It's just the way they're doing things for now. We kind of are spoiled by how quickly SpaceX loads and goes their rockets. It is easier, at least from oh no, another delay. Pooey. Yeah, it's not ideal for my sleep schedule. It's really not. But I'm going to stick with it, and maybe you will too. But then again, if you have a busy day tomorrow, you're going to school or work, and you're still up, yeah, maybe consider just checking in the morning or set an alarm or something. Just wake up and just go, oh, there it goes, go. You don't have to be awake for it all. I mean, that's what you got us for. You can always rewatch. Meanwhile, if you're in Europe or something and you're just now waking up, welcome. You are able to catch this launch attempt. Yeah. So again, from Scott, thank you again for the generous donation. We have lots of time to answer questions now. Let's see, from Jack. Interesting question. Do you think the booster would still attempt a landing on Jacklyn if one or both of the second stage engines fail to light after stage separation? I think so. I think hopefully the stage separation device that pushes the stages apart is powerful enough to have plenty of clearance. But now here's the thing. The second stage would fall very close to, let's say, no engines lit on the second stage. It'll basically follow the trajectory of the first stage. Again, let's listen in and see if we can hear why.
Seconds to go until launch. You may have noticed that we've added some more time to the clock, as we mentioned before. This is just our teams getting aligned, making sure that each of the separate sub-teams have all gone through all of their checklists, make sure that everything is in the green, making sure that the weather here at the Cape and downrange, everything is within bounds. So again, if we need to add a couple more minutes, that is quite all right with us. But while we've got a little bit more time, I would like to check in with my colleague, Eddie Seifert, out there at...
Okay, so they're just going to talk about their view and the excited crowd there. I hope that the crowd is hanging in there because it's probably cold and it is very, very, very late for those people. So I do feel bad for them. All right, so where were we? Yeah, so if the upper stage did not light, honestly, in my opinion, there's a very good chance the booster will just continue on as if nothing happened. Like it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It's kind of doing its own thing. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Let's see here. Let's keep answering your questions. From Jamie wants to know, speaking of the Mark Rover, not Rover launch, is that going to be RTLS, so return to launch site landing, or drone ship? It's going to be an RTLS, which I've never seen at Vandenberg Space Force Base. I've never seen an RTLS out here. And lately the weather's actually been fantastic, so I'm really hoping Tuesday's launch is crystal clear. That would be fantastic. But we will see. We will see. It'd be, yeah, that'd be... Oh, I hope it's clear skies because we also have a bunch of tracking equipment out here and stuff, and that'd be really fun to see. This is from someone that unfortunately can't read the characters. I just realized that NASA's JPL is affected by the Eaton fire in Los Angeles. Sound can put out fires, but also the Saturn V rocket produced water vapor. If they put rockets onto vehicles, then JPL could firefight. Close. The Saturn V didn't produce water vapor. The space shuttle did because it ran on hydrogen. So when you have hydrogen as your fuel and oxygen as your oxidizer, when you burn the two, you get H2O. You get water. I would not recommend that as a way to put out fires, though. But yes, my thoughts are with so many people, including a lot of my friends who are affected by the forest fires. It is crazy. It is very scary. Flying in today, you could see some of the smoke lying within like the Los Angeles area. Very scary, very sad. Terminator 96 with New Glenn and Starship using CH4, so methane and liquid natural gas, same thing. Do you think RP1 vendors are in trouble long term? I don't think we have to worry about the RP1 vendors anytime soon. Falcon 9 is eaten up more of that stuff than anyone had ever seen imaginable, and let alone it's easy to intermix between RP1 and jet fuel. So we can just refine it a little bit differently and make more jet fuel if we need. I don't see that changing too much. And rockets compared to jets are launching like 1/38 millionth as much. Like it's not even close. So the amount of, even if these rockets start launching 100 times more a year, it would still not even be a dent compared to the aviation industry. David Fox, thank you so much for your generous chat. Greatly appreciated. Pull tab, I am proud to support a woman-owned company like Blue Origin. I mean, there's probably some women that own parts of it. David Fox, Marco will be in Vandy for his SAT launching on Transporter 12. We'll be hanging out with him, where you'll be watching from. So I will be hanging out with him. He's throwing a party for people that are Crunch Lab supporters and subscribers. And that's what I'm a part of, is part of that event. From Fletcher Boy, Red Bull on me. Thank you so much. Honestly, I should take a break and get some more liquids. And I don't want to take like any kind of energy. I hate energy drinks. They always make me feel terrible. Coffee is strong enough for me. So, but I hate also drinking that anytime late to stay up, because then I sleep like crap. So just gotta power through. New Elon rocket, is that what you're suggesting? That would be funny. This is from Thalion. SpaceX has been doing this forever now. A successful Falcon 9 launch isn't even newsworthy these days. Correct. Does that mean that no one else should be doing this? Does that mean, okay, they did it, now everyone else stop trying? The Wright brothers, when they first flew a powered aircraft, should everyone else been like, okay, well, they already did it. What's the point of me trying? No, that's horrible. That's like the worst mentality for this kind of stuff. We want as many people trying to push the boundaries and improve upon and compete with each other to make a better system and have options. What if something horrible happens with SpaceX and they decide, we're done building rockets, we're just gonna make cat toys, from now on. You want to have options, and you want competition, and you want variety, and you want new ideas. You want people trying things with slightly different approaches. Yes, this is similar, but it's competition for the first time. It's proper competition to the Falcon 9. So I am absolutely not in line with what you said. And Art's rasterization, great name, became a member. Thank you so much for your membership. JX Pat says, increase your microphone input level. I think we've fixed that now. I think it's pretty well mixed, but you guys let me know if not. People saying pre-recorded stream. No, this is not pre-recorded. I don't do that. If you're watching the Everyday Astronaut channel, yeah, it's crazy to me that people still haven't quite figured out, like, there's a ton of scams for any new thing like this, like New Glenn. When SpaceX streams, there's all these scams, and they have a QR code on the screen. If you see a QR code on screen during a stream, it is obviously a scam right there. But it just sucks because it's spreading misinformation. People will be like, "Oh, I thought that one blew up." It's like, no, that was a mission from 2 years ago. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Philip Moyer for Tim's private jet fund, so I can see all these launches in person. Thank you. I mean, I don't want a private jet. I want like a Columbia 400 or a Cessna TTX. That would be plenty of plane to get across the country. Hang on, we'll get a little update.
As Denise has talked about, all the propellants are nice and chilled down. You saw the big, beautiful Blue Origin word mark and feather on that rocket. She is looking beautiful. But we do have a little bit more time here. Why don't we take a moment to talk about the BE-4 engines. We're looking at the vehicle right now. At the base of the vehicle, oh, that's a pretty shot right there. You see the 7 nozzles of the 7 BE-4 engines. You want to tell us a little bit more, Denise?
Yeah, so New Glenn is powered by 7 BE-4 engines. Now, these are the nation's first reusable, oxidizer-rich stage combustion booster engines. They use liquid oxygen and liquefied natural gas, or LNG, which is essentially a commercial form of methane.
Yeah, and we selected LNG because It's cleaner burning and more efficient than kerosene, or also known as RP1, rocket propellant 1. That's what a lot of rockets use. It's also low cost and widely available, which is really important when you're doing lots of launches, which is our intention for this New Glenn program. I should also note that we have done a ton of testing on the BE4 engine, and we also want to keep those costs down as well. All of it adds up, right? And one of the coolest aspects, though, about LNG is that it can self-pressurize its tank through a process known as autogenous repressurization, right? So this eliminates the need for costly and complex systems that use helium, which is pretty rare. So normally you got helium and other gases in there to push the pressures properly through the engines to get them ready to go. But with LNG, it basically does it on its own. That's what that means.
It's so fascinating. And in terms of power, each BE4 engine generates an impressive 550,000 pounds of thrust. So when you combine all 7 engines, New Glenn produces about 3.85 million pounds of thrust at launch. And just to put that into perspective, that's roughly half the thrust of a Saturn V rocket, which took humans to the moon. Imagine that power of 200 Boeing 737 airplane engines all firing at once. That's what we're looking at here.
And that is a ton of power. You see that these images here, this video, this is from our test facility down in West Texas. And man, oh man, I have been down there actually for one of these tests. And our facility down in West Texas is in this valley. And it just reverberates. You feel like you're in the inside of a drum. It just shakes the entire valley, and I mean, it's just incredible. And we're putting 7 of those at the base of this vehicle. The other thing you should see in that video there is that it burns this really cool blue color. So that's a nut. I'm not saying that's why we chose this propellant, but it's a nice little bonus to it.
It sure is.
So a lot of power coming out of these engines, but then also a lot of interesting technology that's gone into the turbo pumps too. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
They sure are. So the turbo pumps, which pump fuel and oxygen, are also incredibly powerful. Together, they produce the equivalent amount of horsepower needed to power 2 Nimitz-class aircraft carriers at full speed. Yet each turbo pump is small enough to fit in the back seat of your car.
Think about that. I mean, the comparison is crazy, but just think about that efficiency that goes into that turbo machinery. Then you also see here, obviously, the comparison between our BE4 engine. So there are 7 of those on the base of the vehicle, and our BE3U, BE3 upper stage engines, or 2 of those on the second stage. I want to talk a little bit more here. You see the comparison of the BE4 to the BE3U. You also have a comparison of the power of it as well. Both of these engines are highly sophisticated and have unique functionality built for New Glenn itself. So for BE4, as we noted, we've got 7 of these engines in total at the booster. We saw a cool image of that a second ago. The 3 middle engines are gimbaling engines that can pivot to help steer the rocket. So that will be working, of course, in conjunction with the fins at the top of the booster. Now, those 3 middle engines are going to relight to help with deceleration and landing burns. And the other 4 engines are fixed. And this is the combination that gives us both the power that we need, but also the flexibility we need for different stages of flight.
And the BE4 engines are produced at our manufacturing facility in Huntsville, Alabama, and they're tested rigorously at our facilities, both in West Texas and Huntsville, to ensure they meet the high standards.
Yeah, and we should note there are 7 of these on New Glenn, but our friends at ULA with their Vulcan rocket, they use 2 of these engines. And those have already flown successfully to space. So we are very proud of that these engines have already flown to space, and can't wait to see them power this New Glenn rocket as well. They are going to be rattling this building very, very shortly. Well, with that, at T-minus 35 minutes to go until launch, let's toss it back to the rocket and check out New Glenn as this vehicle gets ready for its launch to space this evening.
Did push back again. It did push back again. Alrighty. Well, let's fill some time together. Oh, yeah. I half expect this, though. Like I said, I mean, having been to SLS, all 4 launch attempts of SLS, and having been to many launch attempts of first rockets like Starship and Firefly's Alpha rocket, I mean, I expect this. I expect delays. I'm not that shocked. Like I said, there is a 3-hour launch window. We are 1 hour and 15 minutes into that 3-hour launch window. So we're almost halfway through the potential. Once they get to, they'll be over, they'll have used up like over half of their time at this T0. So we'll see. We will see. Meanwhile, there's a lot of questions, and one very funny and I think very generous super chat from Sean. I don't even want to push it on screen, but Sean saying forget coffee or Red Bull, and then talks about an illicit drug that I'm not going to put on screen because there might be children. Thank you so much for your generous support. My favorite drug to stay awake is called water. I think that water is the perfect hydration solution, and hydration is 99% of life's problems because we are 99% water. No, we're not. We are a lot of water, though. So it's important to stay hydrated. Don't forget your towel. Okay, let's keep going here. Where were we? Oh, man, I'm very far behind. I have to answer quicker. I really like this comment for some reason. Stig Fries. I'm adding nothing to the conversation, and I'm not being constructive. Perfect. I love that. Thank you so much. Reality Anchor. Why are New Glenn and Falcon Heavy so comparable if New Glenn is bigger? Here's the deal. New Glenn, one of the reasons that it's so much larger is the upper stage is hydrogen. Hydrogen is extremely undense. It's very sparse. It takes up a lot of volume, so it's not as dense as liquid methane, or in the case of Falcon Heavy, it's not nearly as dense as RP1. So the upper stage is just physically large, despite not necessarily being as heavy. So although this rocket is closer in scale to, well, then also on top of that, methane is not as dense as RP1. So methane already will make a rocket of similar performance need to be larger. It has to have larger tanks to carry the same mass of propellant. So right there is one, and then hydrogen's even worse by a lot compared to methane. So hopefully that helps answer it. But but Falcon Heavy also has 3 cores, so I don't know if, yes, I don't know, it's complicated. Vulcan, why did New Glenn switch to ground for the control surfaces? Also, I've been seeing a lot of diagrams of there being a 3-stage variant of New Glenn. Is that still a thing? Yeah, like we kind of talked about a little bit. Maybe someday we'll see variants with, kick stages and things like that, but for now, I'm not entirely sure what their plan is for a 3rd stage, and plans always change in this industry. It seems like, they got to start flying. They got to see what kind of customers they're looking for, if their customers are needing capabilities that only a 3rd stage would offer, or if that's just too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. To answer your other question, so why did they switch to brown? So they didn't switch anything. They actually just decided not to paint the parts that you see that are looking brown. The brown is just the thermal insulation, and the thermal insulation is just naturally that color. That's just the color of kind of like how the external fuel tank of the space shuttle or the main fuel tank, the propellant tank on SLS is orange. They don't paint it orange. That's just the natural color of that insulation. This is just the natural color of the thermal insulation on New Glenn, and that's why it's brown. This is from Black Eagle. Have we ever thought about having a warehouse in Europe and other places as well as with the current arrangement? Just ordering a Falcon 9 model incurs major toll fees. Yes, the Falcon 9 is so expensive to order in Europe. We are fully aware of that. I keep thinking we're supposed to have a European warehouse option starting. The company that I work with, it's actually my friend's company that runs the merchandise that I grew up with in Iowa. He does merchandise for a lot of like big tours and stuff. He actually just merged with another company. They moved the warehouse in like October, November, which was really hard for them for the holiday season. But this new company hopefully has a system in place already to do European fulfillment, which would make that a lot cheaper and save on shipping, because shipping is also extremely expensive. Forget the VAT and the tolls and the fees and taxes. Shipping is just really expensive because our Falcon 9 model is like 2 kilograms. It's like over 4 pounds. It's very heavy. Eric Valero, why don't any of the new offerings from Blue Origin or SpaceX use solid rocket boosters? So solid rocket boosters are pretty primitive. They're really, they're not very reusable, despite what Space Shuttle tried to do, which was trying to reuse them. They found out that in the long term, it ended up costing more to fish them out of the ocean and refurbish them. That being said, so they're primitive. They cost more to try to refurbish. They're not really reusable. And they can be high thrust to weight ratio, but they're not very high specific impulse because they have such heavy elements that make them up. They have basically like a rubber compound that holds them together. They have aluminum, chunks of aluminum. The heavier your molecules that you're trying to throw, the slower that the same amount of force throwing them will have them shooting out. So that's specific impulse is literally just exhaust gas velocity, period. They're the same thing. They're the exact same. Specific impulse is just, you can take specific impulse times 9.8, so that's our local gravity, you get to your exhaust gas velocity, which let's say you have 300 seconds of specific impulse, it'd be close to, it'd be like 9,000 or 2,900 whatever meters per second of exhaust gas velocity. So so they're poor specific impulse, and they're stupid. You can't turn them off. They're just not good anymore. They're not as good. You really are limited to even to internal pressures. A liquid propellant, liquid fueled rocket engine, you can really get a lot of pressure, and therefore you can have a high expansion ratio. You can get a higher specific impulse. You can accelerate that gas up to a very high velocity, that exhaust gas to a high velocity, and make for a more efficient engine. Would die says, so consider a Blue Origin to launch when it doesn't suit my schedule. Shake my head. I mean, to be honest, I feel that right now. But yeah, it has nothing to do with time of day. It's all about whenever works, and whatever worked for arranging it with the range and the FAA and weather and all the considerations that go into a rocket launch, especially an inaugural rocket launch. Let's see. From Tiberius, unrelated, but considering the fact that Super Heavy is no longer using the grid fins as their catch hardpoint, can't they just fold down the fins to prevent damage from hot staging? I don't really think they're receiving much damage from hot staging. And they don't want to fold them down either, because that's a heavy mechanism. They don't have a folding mechanism on the grid fins because it's extra weight and complexity. So I really don't think, I don't think they need to. This is from Sean McPherson. I think that you are going to be invited to one of the flies to the moon. I was once, and that's not happening anymore. So I'm going to be pretty leery of any future promises.
We've been adding some time to the clock. This is to allow our teams to go through their checklists. Keep in mind there are multiple sub-teams that are up there in launch and mission control. We want to make sure that everything is ready to go, and if some of those items on the checklist take a little bit of extra time, we're going to do so, especially since it is NG1. We want to make sure that everybody is prepared and everything is aligned. We should also mention, again, we have to keep our eyes on the weather, both here and downrange. So with that, let's continue to check out New Glenn on the pad as this rocket and our teams get ready for NG1.
Okay, guys, let's keep all limbs, fingers, appendages crossed, because I really hope this thing takes off tonight. Yeah, it would be just fantastic for me, and hopefully fantastic for the folks at Blue. Speaking of folks at Blue, this is awesome to hear from Space Gardener. Thanks for being a positive figure in our industry, Tim. Tonight is extremely exciting for me, having worked on this for many years. I really hope it goes well and we can join the space race. I think it will go well, and I really hope you can join the space race. I mean, you're just at literally at the doorstep here of entering the space race. So I would say, yeah, you're doing great. I can't wait to see this thing fly either, having been up close and personal, having touched the booster, touched some hardware. Really cool to see. I can't wait. And maybe if you guys kick butt and land one of these and have a successful launch, we'll invite you guys out to the Astro Awards next year. Speaking of Astro Awards, we haven't talked about this much, but guess what? The Astro Awards coming up here in 12. Oh my God! I just about crap my pants. Oh my God, we're 12 days away. Anyway, 12 days from now in Austin, Texas, January 25th and 26th, we are throwing our second in-person live award show, but it's so much more than an award show. Here's the deal. This is something that started on the channel when it started back in 2018. I decided, hey, we have like awards for cell phones and movies and music. Why don't we have an awards like for the coolest missions of the year? And we're not giving out awards. And this is the decision I made back then. We're not going to give out awards to like anything but literally like the missions, the launch providers, the missions, the science, the coolest things that happened the year before. And it was always just kind of a joke. It was not really a joke. It was just an overview and something fun that we did. We didn't ever really make trophies, but last year we actually did it. We actually invited people to come out, and we had an awesome show last year. We had representatives from SpaceX and Firefly and Virgin Galactic and ESA and Ariane Space, and I mean, people came from all around the world. This year it's even bigger and better. We're having 2 full days of panels and keynotes, including a ton of people. Hopefully you're familiar with Zyla Foxlin, Integza, the crew of Polaris, Dawn, the first commercial spacewalk, including Jared Isaacman, who's going to be the next NASA administrator, Anna Menon, Scott Putty, other members of Polaris Dawn. Charlie Duke, Apollo 16 astronaut Charlie Duke, will be on a panel and doing a keynote with Lori Garver, Eric Berger, and Casey Dreyer. We have Scott Manley, who's doing a ton of things, Lauren Grush, Jack Beyer from NSF, Hillary Coe, John Krause, Cyan Proctor, Amber from the Planetary Society, Paul Wooster from SpaceX doing a panel about if humans can get to Mars. Shonda Pandya also is on that same panel as well. 2 full days of amazing events. So hopefully if you guys are free January 25th and 26th, you better get your tickets right now, astrooawards.live. And it looks like my internet is dying right now. Yeah, hopefully you guys can make it January 25th, 26th. Go to astrooawards.live. Maybe we'll see you there. And if not, then we'll be posting the stuff online afterwards. We're going to be producing it and making it look really good. And hopefully we put on an awesome show for everybody. So, yeah, wish us luck. This is from Jacob Gay. Do you think they will continue to extend and develop a high-performance variation of New Glenn, similar to Falcon 9's developed? Hi from Qatar, and thanks for the wonderful stream. Yeah, Jacob, I do expect that. I do fully expect that this is kind of just the first New Glenn, and I really do expect them to expand upon that. I expect them to pursue a fully reusable, reusable upper stage version of New Glenn. I expect them to push performance out of the vehicle. I expect them to, make a bigger, better, faster, stronger version, and kind of in a similar way to what the biggest thing, they have a lot of room to optimize the flight profile. This first flight profile is pretty, there's a lot of margin. It's pretty conservative. Things like I had talked about with Jeff Bezos, and the tour is, they're going to be doing an entry burn, or an exo-atmospheric burn, as he called it. But it's basically the burn that you do before the booster re-enters the atmosphere to help slow it down so it can survive. They're hoping to eventually gather enough data and just start not doing it, similar to how Starship forgoes the entry burn and just grits its teeth and flies into the atmosphere and lets the atmosphere scrub off all of its velocity in exchange for an awful lot of re-entry heating. Yeah, that's pretty much what I expect. I expect it to get a lot of performance out of refining the flight trajectory and the saving propellant on re-entry and things like that. And then hopefully they continue to push the hardware too. Digital Architects, thank you so much for becoming a member. Greatly appreciated. Ninja Guy Dan does the phase. Ninja Guy, that's fun. My brother-in-law is a professional ninja, owns a ninja gym, and my nephews they've all been on American Ninja Warrior. My whole family, except for me, is basically super ninja. Ninja Guy Dan, does the phase change occur prior to ignition or after ignition? So I think we're talking back to injectors. I think once a combustion chamber is up to operating temperatures, the phase change happens from liquid to gas before ignition, because it's an extremely hot combustion chamber. But that is part of, a lot of that, the tube length, the shape of the combustion chamber is allowing enough time for the total mixture and the phase change and all the transients there as they are trying to ignite all of the propellant inside the combustion chamber. Thank you so much, Isaac. Good work, man. Guy from Kenya here. That's awesome. I love that people are tuning in from all around the world. There's still a good amount of you guys all hanging out with me. I hope that you guys, I hope that most of the people now are waking up and watching. And if you're still staying up and you're in the US, if you're on the West Coast, I think that's, who am I to judge a late night? Who am I to judge late night? Wherever you are, late night, early morning, welcome. Thank you for hanging out with me. This is from Chrome Research. Will Starship make several orbits of Earth before coming back down to be caught by the same tower and booster? How much later than the booster catch? So, yes, I think it'll have to make several orbits just to realign over the landing pad. The orbit won't. So there's a very narrow corridor in which you can leave Starbase and not overfly land when you're launching into orbit. And what that means is you're going to be at a pretty particular orbit, and you're in a pretty particular inclination. And that means that the inclination won't always line up ground tracking over Starbase. So it might be every 3 orbits, so every 4.5 hours or so. I'm kind of making something up. I'm just making up examples. So it'll take at least, minimum will be 90 minutes. I expect it to be more like, 4, 5, 6 orbits before it realigns and before they get the tower clear. So they will have to, be able to put the booster down, secure it, and have the tower ready to catch again. So I would expect, the first one will likely be 2 different towers for booster and Starship. I expect them, I know they want to catch that ship, but I have a hard time imagining how they're going to do that without 2 towers at first. But I don't know. Maybe if they catch a tower or a booster and can just put it right back on the launch pad within an hour, that'd be awesome. Let's see. Trying to get to some good questions here. This is from Gaz Liddon asking, hey Tim, Lurie channel, thank you so much, and thank you for the donation. Could New Glenn ever be configured like Falcon Heavy? 2 boosters strapped into a custom core. Is that crazy? I can imagine launch facilities might be more of a challenge than rocket construction. So I think the general consensus by most conventions is it's easier to just build a bigger rocket than it is to start doing strap-on boosters and multi-staging in that way. It just adds a lot of complication, especially when you're trying to reuse the boosters and catch them. It just gets really difficult. So I think SpaceX has definitely decided that no, we're not going to do like a super heavy with a tri-core super heavy. It's just easier to make a bigger super heavy, and I think that's become the general convention. We just aren't seeing as many tri-cored or multi-core vehicles, especially ones that are reusable. So I don't know. From Kamado Sean, I will be traveling to the Cape this summer. Any tips on how to plan around watching a rocket launch? These days, you're in luck. You're in a lot of luck because the Falcon 9 flies so often out of the Cape. If you go there for 1 week, you're bound to see, at this point, literally, I kid you not, if you're there for a week, you'll probably see 2 or 3 rocket launches, and most likely those 2 or 3 will be Falcon 9s. So yeah, my tips are spend as much time as you can. Stay close to Cape Canaveral or Cocoa Beach, where you can walk out on the beach and get a good view. If you can do like a feel the heat ticket at Kennedy Space Center, that would be also awesome because it's pretty close. Yeah, I would say give yourself as much time as possible and enjoy it. Richard Ciano wants to know if the recent cold snap has anything to do with the delay. Today, no. Downrange weather where they're trying to catch the booster, yes, big time. I think there's just a really bad weather system the last couple days, but that's why they moved it to today, and I think they're working on getting there. We'll see if it happens in 13 minutes. I would absolutely love that. Stig Fries became a member. Thank you so much, Stig Fries. I appreciate you very much. From Joe Love, does the upper stage having hydrogen fuel differ in terms of boil off from Falcon 9? Wouldn't hydrogen being less dense boil off quicker, easier? Yes, 100%. And I don't think it's just directly about density, but it's the fact that it's boiling point. Is there a direct correlation between boiling point and density? I've never ever thought about that. This might be one of those dumb things that I just, due to a lack of a formal education, like a formal college education, I just never thought about that. Is that true? No, I don't think so, right? But there are a lot where that does kind of correlate when I just think about it off the top of my head. I'm seeing yeses and nos. I'm seeing yeses and nos. Oh my gosh, people are reporting orbs and UFOs. What are you talking about? Okay, I will trust Juan in our Discord, absolutely. Not exactly, but there probably is a pretty strong correlation there. Okay, anyway, back to the question. It's the boiling point of hydrogen is just very, very, very cold. It's pretty close to absolute zero. Like it's extremely cold to get it down to a liquid state, and so the upper stage does have a major difference from Falcon 9 with having to use hydrogen. A lot of companies shy away from using hydrogen because it's just hard to use between being really cold and wanting to boil off, but also because it's so sparse and because the tiny little atoms are so teeny tiny. Hydrogen molecules are just itty bitty. They want to leak through anything, so it's really hard to make fittings and pipes and valves. Oh, it just moved again. It did just move again. No. Oh. So that's going to put it at what? So that's going to put it at like 38 minutes from now. We'll say 40. Yeah, after midnight here. So they're getting into their last hour. They're getting into their last hour here. For those of you wondering, why is it scrubbing? Yeah, this is their first ever orbital launch. I think, I expect a decent amount of this. I expect some caution. I expect some padding, some margin, some grace of, let's not push this. Let's not risk this. They're a pretty risk adverse company. They're not a company that's just gonna, go for it. Just, fee, which would be F it, fly it. That's not really their mantra. So yeah, I kind of expect some teething pains on this first, but no big deal again. Remember, again, I've quoted many times SLS, Vulcan, Starship, the first many flights of Hopper and SN5 and 6 and SN8 and SN9 and 10 and 11 and 15 and all the scrubs that we used to go through. Yeah, I'm used to it. This is pretty normal. We've got spoiled lately with how reliable Starship has been. Here, let's listen in.
They are working through their checklist. There's clearly some things that they want to spend a little bit more time on, and that is okay. I will reiterate, we have spent years designing this rocket. We have spent months and months designing this mission, building this particular vehicle as well. The design and test that's gone into the engines that are powering this rocket. If we need a couple more minutes, especially on this first launch, that is okay with us. We want to give our team the right time and the space that they need to work on whatever they got going on up there. I also want to keep in mind, my understanding is that the weather continues to stay inbounds here at the Cape as well as out at sea. But for the moment, we have decided to put more time on the clock, which means that we still have a chance, still have the opportunity to launch this evening. I should say,
I was waiting for it,
Ariane. I know, it's pretty apropos because this vehicle says...
So you're telling me there's a chance?
That is the name of this booster. So yes, everything is, it's like it was meant to be for this vehicle.
It really
okay,
is.
With that, we are T-minus 35 minutes to go until launch. Let's continue to check out New Glenn on the pad as it continues to prepare for its launch to space this evening.
Okay, and this, my friends, is why you watch with me. Because we can fill time by answering questions and hanging out and being super, super, super positive, even though the timing of the time of day is not ideal. Okay. I think this is a great question. From Tom Buttu. This might be a weird question. No, I think it's a great question. What is my unbiased opinion on the different launch companies? What do they do best and what do they do worst? To be perfectly honest, I think they're all quite similar these days. They've all kind of they've all embraced, there's the right word, kind of a casual approach to a work environment. I will say that having toured a lot of them, they all, you see people just wearing t-shirts and jeans, and it's very casual, and it's very, hangouty and friendly and fun. I will say that I think something that SpaceX, let's say something they do good and bad. Good, they push boundaries and set records and just are the titan right now. Bad is the people work really hard to do that. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a bit much. And I know a lot of people that do get burnt out at SpaceX. And that's okay. It's not for everybody. The work-life balance can be very hard. Blue Origin, on the other hand, I think is kind of on the opposite end of that. I wish that they kind of would push harder and more sleepless nights sometimes to get what feels like a completed project done sooner. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of their employees are quite happy. They have from a lot of the people that I know or have talked to or heard of, have a more healthy work-life balance. But I think that those things aside, I can't necessarily speak directly to those because I've never worked at these companies. But what I can say is I think they're all pursuing some pretty interesting concepts, and it's like I really like some of the things that Stoke Space is doing. If we're just talking unbiasedly, but I am a biased person, so just keep that in mind. And here's another thing. I'm just going to say this. This is a little thing that I say often. A lot of people adopt, there's a few things like the tribal tendencies of human nature. It's like tribalism of like, I like this, therefore I don't like this. I try really hard to fight that bias, to say, I like this thing, but I can also like other things. There's nuances to life. There's a gray area, and actually the more you explore that gray area between good and bad, like and dislike, delicious and disgusting, the more you kind of spend time in that middle there, I think the more you can appreciate some of the finer details. And I honestly find myself really enjoying seeing what other companies do on just the slightest little differences. A good example of that is I went to Europe last year, not last year now, 2 years ago in 2023, and I visited RFA, Rocket Factory Augsburg, and I visited ESAR Aerospace, only about an hour and a half away, both in Germany. And some of the ideas they had were like, I couldn't believe it. I had never thought of it. And they were just these little ideas. And you couldn't have had two more different companies than those two. And they were only an hour and a half apart. And I love that. I think that is so cool. I think that is so satisfying. Yeah. I'll turn my audio up a little bit. I am getting quieter and quieter because it is getting late in this hotel, and I don't want to upset the neighbors too much, and my throat's getting tired. So I'm going to bring the mic a little bit closer. And they are talking about more stuff now, though. Let's listen to it for a second.
Like this. But since we do have some time, why don't we take a closer look at our vision and mission at Blue Origin? You know, as we've said, time and...
We're just kind of talking about that kind of stuff. All right. Ooh, Kitty Donahue is celebrating 55 months of membership. That is awesome. Thank you so much for 55 months of membership. Truly, that means a lot. And yeah, you keep all this stuff possible. Daniel became a member. My friend Daniel. Hello, Daniel. Thank you for the membership. That is very generous. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely see you at Astro Awards. Why does Starship garner so much more excitement? I think it's just hard to beat a vehicle that's so large and so ambitious, and knowing that they're trying to push it and knowing that there's a good chance it's going to fail is exciting. Whether or not some people might not care for that. Some people might think that's stupid. Other people find that exciting. And I like to celebrate all things. I like to find the nuances between all that stuff. So, but I do still find Starship very exciting. But I'm also really excited about this. I do wish I could see this in person. Hey, Minnesota Jack Sparrow, welcome. Glad to see you around. And hope we don't disappoint you with tonight's coverage. Kenneth Johnson, I get so many compliments with the Soviet orange Everyday Astronaut store hoodie from a few years ago. Not a question, just sharing feedback. Solid supplier and quality too, by the way. Well, thank you so much. Huh. Well, that's great. Just a little reference, the orange hoodie wouldn't be Soviet. That's actually based on the, AS spacesuit that was actually originally the spacesuit for the U-2 spy plane and or the SR-71. And then it was modified slightly for the first 4 space shuttle missions. So, yeah. Kevin Meany, I think I answered this a few times. I expect 3 or 4 launches this year. That would be, hopefully, about what we see out of New Glenn this year. Maybe more, maybe less. Wesley Hoffman, how do vehicle characteristics, fuel type, integration process, payload capacity affect contract to launch timelines for launch systems? Recognizing that solutions vary based on mission requirements. Holy heck, this is a lot to process at this time of night. Why do vehicle characteristics, fuel types, integration processes, payload capacities affect contract to launch timelines for launch systems? Recognizing that solutions vary based on mission requirements. Wesley, that is so much for me to handle right now at this time of night. Affect contract to launch timelines for launch systems. Recognize that solutions vary based on mission requirements. I'm sorry, I don't even know how to answer that. I really appreciate your generous donation, but I think at this point, these days, I'm going to answer it this way. These days, it feels like companies that are flying more frequently has the biggest effect on how the frequency of the cadence of flying affects the contract to launch timelines for launch systems. Man, that's like a poof. Thank you for the question. Let's see. I'm trying to visualize the scale of this piece. Do you know its radius or the size of the gray side panels on the support structure? Yeah, we do. It's 7 meters in diameter. And the size of the gray side panels on the support structure. I don't know how big the gray, so 7 meters wide is what, like 20, a little more than 21 feet, like probably 23 feet, 24 feet almost. 7 times 3.3. 7 times 3.3 equals 23 feet wide. So yeah, it's huge. I mean, and it's 98 meters tall. I think that's like 320 feet tall. It is hard to visualize the size of it. The best way to visualize the size of it, you don't have to. Watch my video with Jeff Bezos, and we walk and put our heads inside. Put our heads inside the rocket. We go up right next to the boosters and stuff. We go out to the launch pad. You can see humans for scale, I think is, although I do like banana for scale. Humans for scale is definitely the next best thing. From Arthur Dent, go to sleep, we love you. Well, I appreciate your love and your donation. However, yeah, we're this far into this thing. We're gonna stick around, darn it. I really hope we get to see this thing launch tonight. Michael McKinley, I hope you magically wake up feeling refreshed and not affected by your long night. I appreciate that. I really do, because big upcoming 48 hours, well, 72 hours for me. So, yeah, it's going to be sleepy nights are going to be good. Brendan Russell, what will happen to the second stage? Will it splash down or burn up? So I think it's just going to be in a dead graveyard orbit, because the payload is not going to be detached from the second stage. I think they're just going to be putting it into that highly elliptical orbit, and they're just letting it stay there. It's a dead orbit at that point. From North Carolina, will we see the launch at Apogee? I think you will see the launch from North Carolina. There's a tweet. Go to Blue Origin's, or sorry, not a tweet. There's an X post from Blue Origin that shows. I'll find it for you. Here we go. North Carolina, that's that guy, right? So yeah, you will see it 4 minutes, after liftoff. So depending on where you are. After that, it slightly will probably go behind the curve of the Earth, sadly. Darn it, not a flat Earth. That sucks. Thank you, Wormhole to the Cosmos. Thank you so much for 13 months of membership. Greatly appreciated. From Palmster, it's 5:30 p.m. in Adelaide. Thank you for staying awake. You're welcome. Thank you for tuning in with me. Let's see. Chris, how much do we know about the alloy Blue Origin design that gives parts of New Glenn the distinct gold bronze color? Not much. Again, referencing the tour I had with Bezos, we did talk about that gold foil a little bit, but I don't think we learned too much about the actual like the makeup of the alloy there. So I'm sure it's pretty closely guarded and pretty closely guarded secret. Thank you, Aaron, for becoming a member. From Prog Rock Nick VR. What do you think the landing profile for a Starship catch would be like? If the chopsticks are on the east side, that would mean the Starship would come in over the tower. I think you need to remember that a few things. Starship, by the time it's doing that final bit, is literally coming straight down. And the slew maneuver to go like this it'd be just as easy for them to go completely overfly it and then come in towards the tower from the east. You could easily do that. Or you could go directly over the tower and you'd still be like hundreds of meters above the tower. But at least your inertia from the flip maneuver will get you away from the tower. So I almost do expect them to come in short of the tower west. They'll be west of the tower and flip basically right over top of it when they do that. That would be my guess. DC-10s work fine for the fires as opposed to rocket engines. I agree. Yusef, good to hear from you. Thanks for all you do, Tim. Thank you so much for your tip. I greatly appreciate that. Scott Prombo, thank you also for your tip. Oh, this is true. Fender 90. Actually, Soviets had a firefighting tank based on the T-34 with 2 jet engines is used to blow out fires. I do actually recall seeing that. That is the craziest thing. And I just can't imagine how that can work. How do you blow out a fire? Like, how is that not just fueling it with more oxidizer? I guess if you burn off all the oxidizer with, I don't know. That just seems crazy to me. M&M, thank you so much. Let's see, working. Justin Abbas, is there any news on construction of New Glenn 2, as in the second booster and rocket set I'm assuming you're talking about? When I was at Blue, I think they had 4 tail sections they were working on already. So they have other ones, and I think they're working on like 7 upper stages already. They are quickly building and ramping up their productions to be able to keep up with a pretty fast cadence. So, is there any news on construction? I mean, it's under construction. That's the news. John Depker, good morning, y'all. Thank you for tuning in, John. Good to hear from you. And thank you for 37 months of membership. That's awesome. Rosalv, Tim, thank you so much for your coverage. I watched a lot of your streams over the years, and I really appreciate your explanations. Hoping for a launch. Thank you so much. I also am hoping for a launch. That would be awesome. My name is Xenia Art. So the New Glenn carrying payload on first attempt and Starship is just an empty flying tin can. Elon's lost chasing money and power. Jeffrey, you can do it. Again, I like to find the nuances in life because I think that it's okay to have a big, crazy rocket try and fail. I also think it's okay to have a big rocket that took longer with a payload and try and hopefully succeed. I think there's room in my brain and my heart for both of those things to exist. I think they're both exciting. I like them both for different reasons. Starship, the one thing that I will say about Starship is it's so hard to picture what's going to happen when that thing is fully flying and operational. And it's going to go from a joke, blowing up and doing these little weird test missions that aren't even orbital, to all of a sudden, snap of a finger, by the end of the year, mark my words, I think that thing's just going to be flying regularly and deploying payloads. And within 2 or 3 years, we'll look back and go, oh God, I see why they were trying all these, pushing the boundaries the way they did every launch. It'll happen quickly. Gavin Shipman, Tim, why would they continue to use hydrogen stages when they know there are leak issues? I understand the specific impulse benefits, but come on. Leak issues, if you work with it every day, again, watch my video, my tour with Stoke Space. They're doing hydrogen on their upper stage, and I asked almost that exact question, like, how is it worth it to use hydrogen? It's so much harder to utilize, it's so much harder to handle every day. And he said, well, I think at the time they had done 70 test fires of their engine in the month of October. That's an average of 2 a day, with at the time it was 15 nozzles on that one engine, all running on hydrogen. That's a lot of valves, a lot of parts. And I was like, well, how do you do that? Like, he said, well, if you work with it enough, you just learn all the kinks and you figure it out, and it works. I think it's just kind of like, at one point trying to use liquid oxygen was probably considered like, oh, come on, we're not going to put liquid oxygen in a rocket. Like, we have hydrogen peroxide. That's a good enough oxidizer. We don't need liquid oxygen. Are you crazy? How are we going to cool that down and put it into a rocket? Like, that won't make any sense. And now everyone uses liquid oxygen, basically. I think if you work with a material and you set up yourself to do it often enough, it can just work. And apparently they feel comfortable. Their new Shepard vehicle is all hydrogen, so they have a lot of experience working with hydrogen. A lot of other companies still use hydrogen. I don't think there's any convention saying it's impossible. It's just definitely considered more difficult. Sarah, thank you so much for your support. I greatly appreciate that. All right, George, enjoy your time away. Thank you for your support. Scott Hemphill, again, another thank you so much for your support. Stephen Elliott, what's the deal with the burning towers? Maybe answer this. I actually have not talked about this once. This launch live stream. That's actually crazy. So those are, you'll see the flare stacks there. We used to see these all the time at Starbase, but you can see the flare stacks. So when you have you're loading liquid oxygen, you're loading liquid hydrogen, you're loading liquid methane. Those are the three propellants that they're loading into this vehicle. As they boil off, you don't have to worry about oxygen boiling off. That's why you see it being vented out the rocket right now. That condensation pouring off the booster on the left, that's just liquid oxygen getting, warming up in the relatively warm Florida air. As it changes from a liquid to a gas, just like water, steaming and boiling, it expands. It would pressurize the thing that it's in, and instead of letting that burst as it expands, you vent it out. So now you have still really cold gaseous oxygen being vented out, but you can't do that same thing with methane and hydrogen. So instead of you can't just vent it out, you'd risk the chance of an explosion or a detonation. So instead they actually have pipes that go back down to the ground equipment, and then they have a place to safely vent that. And when they vent it, they also ignite it so that you don't have an ignition event. You don't have a buildup of gas where you could have like a full-on explosion. And in doing so, that's why you see those flare stacks. And also if there's changes in the ground equipment, and again the ground equipment can also be venting and they need a place to vent, they all go out that flare stack. So that's what that is. You'll see that change in magnitude as during different portions of the, if they're topping something off, they might not need to vent as much. If they close off if they completely close off filling and they're pressing for flight, lots of times you will see additional boil off then, or no boil. I mean, it all just changes all the time. So we are, I shouldn't risk it by saying this, but we are under T-minus 15 minutes. If we get under T-minus 10, I'd feel really good about that. Thank you so much from Advamped for a hot dog with ketchup. Westwell, are they up against a hard window to go for liftoff? Looking forward to a successful mission. Yes, they have a 3-hour launch window. We are exactly at 2 hours into it. Well, now we have 59 minutes left in this launch window. So if this clock moves at all, keep that in mind, that if it bumps back 45 more minutes from here, that would be bumping up against the end of their launch window. So that is that. Starship, New Glenn, ISSD orbit. What are you talking about? Super Heavy just launched a red roadster, and a man in an orange suit is going to talk about BFR. Steve Fries. Super Heavy did not launch a red roadster, and a man in an orange suit, that's me, going to talk about BFR. I'm not entirely sure what you're even talking about anymore, Steve Fries, but I love you and thank you. Paul Regatz, thank you so much for the $50 super chat. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Sincerely, I mean, I know at this point I'm just talking circles around myself and I'm becoming halfway delusional, but yeah, that makes a huge difference. I'm excited for you guys to see, by the way. Speaking of support, we're filming a lot of the behind the scenes stuff right now, kind of to give you guys an update on what it takes right now for us to run specifically our shows down at Starbase, where we have all these tracking cameras and remote cameras, and how we're beaming all the data back to our studio, and how we took Luna, our van that was running all of our shows at Mars. Mars is the studio. We call the studio at Starbase, we call that Mars. And we also built a van called Luna, and Luna was parked and just plugged into Mars. It literally ran the shows. It ran all of our stuff down there. We Oh, T-minus 0. It's lifting off. It is lifting off. It is not lifting off. So yeah, that's not a good sign. That's not a great sign. Yeah, pay some respect. Pay some respect for that one, my friends. Craig, thank you for appreciating what we do. But like I said, like I was just ranting about, we're gonna have a long video about just kind of behind the scenes, like a gear rundown and how and why and what and how we do it. The trailer we just built is incredible. I can't wait to use it at Mars for a Starship launch. Probably won't change much on your end, to be perfectly honest. Like we're doing everything we want to be doing, but now it just, from the operations end, will just be more reliable. There's more space for operators. It just will be done right, and hopefully less headaches, which is always a good thing. This is from Kenneth Johnson. Is the family sleeping well, or are you getting occasionally sleepy doorway glares from the old ball and chain? Kidding, of course. Hope the dots are well. Thank you, Johnson. I am in a hotel in California, and yeah, I'm by myself. My girlfriend's not with me. She was with me when Flight 5, when the catch happened. That was the last time I streamed from a hotel. Actually, she's been with me for 2. I also had to do the Polaris Dawn stream from a hotel because we were at another wedding. We had 3 weddings this year, which is weird. I hadn't been to a wedding in like 5 years, and then I had 3 this year. And 2 of them were like middle of the night hotel streams, and both of them she like slept through. So this time, I don't have to worry about that. Yeah. Pretty funny though. Pretty funny comment. Mohammed, did you think New Glenn will be fully reusable like Starship? So they are pursuing the option of an upper stage, a reusable upper stage, called Jarvis is the name of that program, and it's a race between 2 teams. One is an expendable second stage, and one is a reusable second stage with propulsive landing, similar to Stoke with like a regenerative heat shield and stuff. Very, very cool. Oh, Eric Berger is reporting they're scrubbing the launch attempt of New Glenn tonight. Not sure when it'll be made official. That was 4 minutes ago. That was 4 minutes ago. And I do trust Eric's reporting. So it might be a scrub for tonight, guys. We'll wait for official word, but just prepare your hearts, your souls, your minds, your spirits, your eyeballs, your ears, and of course, your butts for the inevitable announcement of a scrub. From Space-Tickus. Although this is an awkward time for those of us here in America, thousands of us are watching live from here and around the world. Huge salute to everyone here. Awesome community. I agree. Thank you. You know, sometimes I get frustrated when I feel like the community isn't aligning, and I feel like there's infighting, and we're all just getting down each other's throats. And when I feel like I'm not being understood, and people are, I've had a hard time lately, guys, because whenever I get super stressed about like having way too many things at once, where I've been working, like it sucks. You don't get to see the work. Like I probably worked 80 hours for 2 weeks, 80 hours each week, working on the Apollo video. I was trying so hard to get it done by Christmas because I knew that January was going to be insane. January is like the nuttiest month of my life. And unfortunately, I couldn't do it. I tried. I got very little sleep. I was literally going to bed at like 2 or 3 and then so busy thinking about the video that I'd wake up at like 5 or 6 and just go back to work. And that's not healthy. And when I'm working that hard on something, it's such a long, cumbersome video. And I'm working that hard on it, and then also working on like the new trailer, also working on the Astro Awards, also working on this launch, also working on the transporter launch we're covering here, also working on, I put out other videos anyway. I put out like 3 other videos in December and January. I mean, shorter ones, but you know, did a bunch of other stuff. And then when people were like, "Where have you been? You're not even doing anything." It's like, oh, you have no idea. And I just felt so misunderstood. yeah, I agree though with Space Dishes. It feels really good to have people all together watching something together. And hopefully just putting differences aside. I know that of course there's always going to be a little bickering, a little bit of this and that, but it feels really good to have you guys here, and it feels really good to hopefully see some cool thing happen someday, and maybe not tonight, but hopefully in the near future. From Daniel, I love this. Super pumped for the Astro Awards. Last year was a blast. Thanks for all you do, Tim. Thank you so much, Daniel. Again, I can't wait to see you at Astro Awards. And I didn't know you had 11 months of membership. You're amazing. Greatly appreciated. Tell your family hi. Peter, just tuned in. Is it possible to hear the control room anywhere to understand the delays? No, they are occasionally updating us, and they're not really giving us much other than the teams are needing more time to make sure everything's okay. It's pretty much all we're saying. S-Dub, SpaceX employee who just dropped $400 on your attire shop. Shout out you for supporting all launch providers. Good luck, Blue Origin, and Godspeed. That's very cool. Now that is awesome. From a SpaceX employee cheering on Blue Origin. That is really, really cool. Seriously, I can't even think about it too much because that's the type of stuff that kind of makes me want to cry. I'll tell you a funny story. One time this is like way back, I was probably like 19 years old. So like almost 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. Flipping through channels. This is back when you had a channel and you like had to you had to look for something. You couldn't just like stream stuff. You had to like find a channel. And I remember right as I was flipping past one channel, it was a monster truck that was in the air, and when it landed, a wheel fell off, and I was like, whoa, I gotta see what's gonna happen here. A monster truck just lost a wheel. And I ended up like just watching for a few more minutes, and this other team, the camera turns, and all of a sudden it's this other team in the pits, and they're like getting one of their tires out, and they're rolling it out to help this other guy out and help him install a new tire on his truck. And for some reason, I just started crying. I just thought it was like the most beautiful thing. Ooh, update.
Update from Mission Control. We are standing down today's launch attempt to troubleshoot a vehicle subsystem issue that will take us beyond our launch window. We are reviewing opportunities for our next launch attempt. So we've scrubbed today's NG1 mission to give the team more time to work that issue, and we're reviewing what other things that we might need to get done in that period. When we know when the next opportunity is, of course, we will let everybody know. Now, to give the viewers a sense of what happens next, the launch team is now working to detank and safe the vehicle. From there, we're going to assess, as mentioned, what other things we might want to get done in our downtime, and that is what's going to guide when the next launch opportunity will be. Follow us on social media. That's the way to stay up to date on announcements for that next launch attempt. We do want to thank you for joining us. We can't wait to get right back here for our next launch attempt. Stay tuned. Gradatum Ferociter.
Okay, there it is, my friends. Kind of expected that, to be honest. Again, of course, better safe than sorry. This isn't an entertainment thing, although for us it is. The important thing is that the vehicle's safe, the teams are hopefully working the issue, and perhaps most important for me, I can get some sleep. A ton of comments that I missed. Sam Farr, I do remember you competing at Ninja U. Awesome to hear from you. Thank you for saying hi. Yeah, let's go to bed, guys, or wake up and go do things wherever you are in the world. I'm missing a lot of things. I don't know why Escapade was rescheduled, but thank you so much for your support. I missed a lot of super chats, guys. You guys are amazing, though. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to call it a night. I'm sorry if I missed your chats. I'm sorry if I missed your fun comments. But I love you guys, and I appreciate you tuning in with me. If I do this again, it might be from right here in this hotel, depending on when it reschedules. I guess we'll find out. So, all right, everybody, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Good night.